you like gold-plated trombone clips? They're not called paper clips, they're called trombone.
Why?
That's what was written on the package.
So is this all tonight's package?
Top one, yes, it's tonight, tonight's package.
Okay.
That's paid, that's tomorrow.
Chairman, I'm ready to go tonight. First. Ready to go first.
This is the,
I'm here
I
to
know,
to make funny faces.
yeah, he's gonna be facing that way, so he can't see the funny face. It's only when he's facing here and then I go and I watch him and it's like, I stop laughing. The faces.
Well, is it on Facebook or YouTube?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'm on the third floor. It's so, it's so bad. Castro being put on the defibrillator. So, I told him the dirty joke about the bank where he laughed, he thought that was funny. And then he asked how he was doing. He told me to text him. He did give me, personal cell phone, which is, Lee was amazed at that.
Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Tuesday, May 30th. And this is a special meeting, since we're gonna be dealing with the budget for the city of Lawrence. Voting present to my left, Councilor at-Large Anna Levy, the Vice Chair of this committee. To my right, Councilor District E, Stefan Infante, and Councilor Gregory de Rosario, representing District C. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. And reminded that a person who would like to listen or to view this meeting while in progress might either attend to the meeting in person at the location above or use one of the following locations: the Facebook Lawrence City Council page and the YouTube Lawrence City Council page. We ask all the city departments to be present for these meetings because of the inconvenience of presenting a budget through via remote or Zoom. So please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. So this meeting has been scheduled for today, Tuesday, May 30th, Wednesday, May 31st, Monday, June 5th, Wednesday, June 7th, and if necessary, we're going to be here as well on Thursday, on Wednesday, June 7th, and also on Thursday, June 8th, if needed. At the end of the meeting tonight, we will take a recess to rejoin on this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, May 31st, and just like we did it, we're gonna doing it that way until we finish. We're gonna listen to the different departments, their budgets, their priorities, and from there, all of us are going to be able to analyze and provide a committee report to the full council. So with no further ado, we're going to start with the city council budget. If you look at the book, that will be on page 25th to 27th. So allow me to welcome the City Council President, and let's discuss the City Council budget.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Let me just say that the state of our budget is a very good state at this point. We're ending this fiscal year in a good place. Some of our accomplishments over the past year, and those are still happening true at this point, is that we've got all the supplies that we could possibly want, but we're going to make sure that we're going to be getting more supplies so that there's no questions going into the future. We were able to take care, and I'm looking at Councilor De La Rosario because he understands the initial pain of this, but we got some new business cards from many of the councilors that were very nice. And I want to thank Councilor De La Rosario personally for his patience as we were going through a little bit of a painful process, but we got to a good process at the very end. One of the things that our budget allows is some flexibility, at least it did this year, and that allowed us, for those of us who chose to actually go ahead and to take a trip that I think was an important and a good trip for those who were able to go, to establish better relationships and communications with our federal delegation when we went down to Washington, D.C. With Teresa's help, we have kept the City Council office afloat and doing well with all the stuff that we've had. Before the end of the fiscal year is up, some things that we're looking at. One is Teresa finally is going to have a new desk. We've waited for DPW. The waiting is no longer. We need to have action. They've been balking and stalking, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do it. And so I asked her to find something, and so she has found something. We'll follow through on that. This year as well is our first time in about 6 years that we had to purchase envelopes. We have not had I mean, the envelope need has gone down, but we're gonna buy envelopes now that are going to last us for some time. So there will not be a need to come before the council in any foreseeable future saying, we need envelopes, because we're going to have envelopes. One of the other things as well that we're going to get before the end of this fiscal year is we all know that we are really good, right, about the citations. I'm proud, as one of the things as council president, under the leadership that you have provided for me, is to really step up on citations. But with that comes a greater need for some of the covers of the citations, and we are running a little low. Councilor Del Rosario, again, has reminded us that he wanted to do something for some of his students, and he is compromising a little bit to go a little bit smaller, but we need to buffer up some of our stuff. The new ones that we're going to get, this is just kind of a template, and this is the smaller version. We need to get the larger one. It's going to look something like this with the city seal on it. So we're going to get this. It's going to be sharp, but it's going to be good, and I think that the folks that are going to be the recipients of our citations and our resolutions going forward are going to be really happy to get something like this that we're going to be able to present. One of the big things as well that we're going to start this year was the vote that we took on interpretive or translation services. This is going to be a big nut. It is. We're going to look at every time we bring someone in here, the possibility of about $700 to pay for it, but it's money that I think is going to be well spent, and it's going to increase and allow us to have the kind of communication and information exchange with our residents and our constituents. Because of that, we're going to start it. My fingers are crossed. We're hoping to sign an MOU pretty soon. I want to thank the members of the ad hoc committee, Councilor Infante and Councilor Selena Reyes, for their tremendous assistance on this. But we're going to start this on the June 6th meeting. That's my hope. And then for the budget meeting, second meeting, so we're going to do it 3 times in the month of June. And then we're looking to do a full, every city council meeting. I'm going to put a little bit of buffer there because sometimes we have special meetings. Sometimes we have some stuff. But the number is a big number. There's going to be about $21,000 that we're going to be putting in for translation services into next year. So what does that mean? So I will say that the mayor has been incredibly fair with the city council with respect to the budget. But what that's going to mean for the end of this year is that we're going to need to roll over some of the monies that we have unspent this year for next year, because I think that dollar amount is much bigger than we probably maybe have expected. But the good news is that I think we're going to be okay for next year, but we're just going to have to earmark some of that money that's left over for this year for next year. And I think that our residents are going to be happy that we're essentially doing that so we can have that communication exchange. Other than that, the other thing I want to add as well, just as a reminder, some of you have asked earlier last year for some monies at the awards store, Harry's, or I think you've asked for it, Council Chairman, the awards place, right? So just know that they're the plaques. And so we have essentially a credit over that. We've already put the money down. So just be aware that there's about 4 city councilors who have asked, money's there, it's there to be utilized. We can go into next year with that because the money's already been paid up front, but we're okay as long as they don't go out of business, and we don't expect that they will. But just be mindful that there is money there, so when you find a reason to go ahead to find whatever the reason are, please be mindful that there is some money set aside that we can use for that purpose. So I think, in the big picture, I think that's a good overview, I think, for this point.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Council President, with all due respect, we are the body that actually approve most of the budget and give money to every department. And we are the only body in this city hall that is the struggle every year for a penny. I don't know if I see it wrong, but I don't see no increasement, and we looking to roll for what we have to next year. And maybe next year we run out of money. We have to beg to get stuff. Why wasn't this budget, there's not increase in our budget for us not to struggle or dig or save so much or struggle so much to try to go throughout the year. I don't see no big increase. Now we're gonna spend $21,000, but maybe councilors won't be able to get a T-shirt at the end of the fiscal budget. Some of them never got one. And what I don't understand is we are the body that approves most of the money, and we are the body that struggle for money. Why there is no significant increasement for us to be not maybe okay, but at least okay in the safe side?
So I sent an email to all of you, if there was any things that you think that would be useful or helpful as we go forward on this stuff. If there is, I mean, I think we should go into a little more detail. If there's something that you think that we need, I think that if we go ahead and take a look at what we have now, I think we have the stuff that we need to be a successful body. The biggest thing I will tell you is this, I think, unfortunately, and I just talked to the capo about this again this evening, is this chamber. The camera systems here are broken down. Channel 22 is not working. It is abysmal. We're trying to serve our constituents, right? But yet, what we have here is atrocious. So we need, and I think, you know, the capo and I have begun the discussions about making, because of the changeover on the LCAT stuff, there's a bit of a change going on. But I think that we're going to be in a better place with respect to it, with respect to the you know, with the conversations that I have with Mr. Iannello. But with the transition of monies now going through the city and some other places. So I'm hopeful, Councilor Del Rosario, that we're going to be in a better spot, at least for this room.
Because to me, it's embarrassing going through the city hall and see all the renovation. And now we get in a desk for Teresa. And it's not even a desk that we're going to buy. It's a desk that is a leftover desk from DPW, if I'm not mistaken. They used it, it's brand new, but it's over there. It's not that we purchase it, that I know of. So to me, it's embarrassing that I go throughout City Hall and everybody's renovated, and to get a desk for a secretary that is there, that probably has that desk for, let's say, 20 years the way it looks. To me, it's embarrassing. To me, it's embarrassing that I have to meet with my constituents outside of my office. Because we do have a place to sit, but we don't have money to spend or put that capable of our position in our department, at least to sit with our constituents. I got to go someplace else to meet with my constituents. How many of us actually come here and see the work? Not a lot of us, but it's not because we don't want to be here. It's because we don't have basically the accommodation that we need to be in here. But that's, I mean, again, that's okay. You sent an email after the budget was done. We did not sit down to discuss the budget or what we needed it, or what we think that we needed it. After the budget was submitted and this book was done, then we got an email. And that's why this discussion is going on right now. But we need to look into exactly what we need. Supplies, yeah, I can bring my own pencils. I can bring my own pens. That's not expensive. But there's things that we need. These cameras that we're waiting on the channel or whatever the settlement or the money it is coming in, it's too old. Why didn't the budget goes up that we can have money to do this? Where's the capital improvement money that we have that we can use in here? Again, I'm okay, but I'm not okay. We are the body that approves most of the money, and we are the body that struggle for money. And we are the body that we get rejected to get business cards. To get business card, $100 business card, we have to have a big fight back there because we don't have enough money. And yeah, you bring a good point. You saving constituents money. But I had a conversation with the chair. I'm saving constituents money. I'm not using the city insurance. I'm getting another insurance for another, so I'm saving constituents money. But when it's a place to work, we need the equipment that we need. And I don't see it for me. I see it for my secretary out there that was asking for a desk for so long. And now we're getting a leftover desk. And we're so proud about it.
No, Mr. Del Rosario, she's getting a brand new desk, not a
Yeah,
leftover
it's a
desk.
brand new desk. It's a brand new desk that we did not purchase.
Sure. No, we're going to purchase the brand new desk. I think that's what I said earlier. Let me just say one more thing, and then thank you. Your comments are well received, number one. Number two, it sounds like I got a volunteer for the next ad hoc committee that I'm going to put together, perhaps as early as July the 6th June the 6th on that meeting, where I want to bring 2 or 3 people together to talk about what we can do to improve our back room over there, to make it more user-friendly. I've already begun initial conversations with Mr. Castillo and the DPW director to talk a little bit about possibilities but I want to bring an ad hoc group together, just like we did for the handicap parking, just like we did for the translation services. And I think your point, and you might be volunteering for this, but I think I want to bring someone like yourself who's got that passion and that interest to make that a place where you can work, where you can meet, where you can get the stuff done that you need to get done. And I invite that.
And I would love to do that. I would love to volunteer, but if we're going to be a penny pincher, I'm not. I'm not going to volunteer for that. And it might sound rude, but it's, to me, once again, and this is my last comment, it's embarrassing to me that we are struggling and fighting for $100 in business card for my colleagues or for me or for whoever. We're not going to have money to improve that desk if we didn't have $100 to pay for business card. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you, Council. Can you look to page 27 very quick?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you look on the salaries for the city council and the city
Yes.
council president?
Yeah.
Can you go over that, please?
You want help with that?
I can go over it. It's the council president's salary, it's 1/2 year at the old rate, and 1/2 year at the new rate. The council voted, hang on one second, council president's salary is going to go from $17,000 to $27,000. So it's $17,000 at 50% of the year, as it's calendar year '24 that this takes effect, and 50% at the old rate. So that's the
Oh.
$22,000. Same thing with the city council salaries. They went from $15,000 for 50% of the year is $7,500, and then $25,000 is the new rate for half a year. That's $12,500. So that's a total of $20,000 per counselor for this fiscal year. So it's a total of $160,000.
So the new salary is going to take effect for the city
January
council
1, I
on
believe.
January 1st?
Yeah.
Once the new,
That's right.
yeah, and then it's going to be for 6 months until June 31st.
Right, and then in July 1 of next year, the salary will be council president 27, and the counselors 25,000.
All right. So, Councilor Infante?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Hi, Council President.
Hello, Counselor.
Look at this microphone. Thank you, Councilor. My only concern with our budget is more and more throughout our meetings, we're hearing more constituent concerns about being informed, particularly with the street changes that we've been doing recently. And that's not just a responsibility, what we're hearing at least, it's not just a responsibility from the third floor, but they're also looking for more action from their counselors to be informative. I would have liked to see, or I would like to see, an increase in postage and printing and mailing, because that would help us reach out to constituents. Like if we need to send a mailer to a whole street about a street closure, whatever, we'll have those supplies here to do that. Yeah, that's the only thing I have.
No, I appreciate the comment, and I would encourage, we do have the money that's there. It is rare that we do it, and I welcome a counselor who decides that they're going to take advantage of that, and it sounds like you are interested in doing that. Please do. And that way, there's plenty of one-way streets that maybe somebody may have wanted to know more information about, and I think
Just
we all know.
using that as an example.
We all know what we're talking
As an
about here, right?
example.
Right. But I think that maybe some information going out to folks, I think is well within our reason, and it just takes a little bit of muscle work from us to put it together, to get the list, whatever it is that we're going to do. But I think it's doable, Counselor.
Thank you, because I know I particularly in my district, we have an item that's coming back up from the ordinance committee for a temporary closure that's over six months, and that's something that I will have to work, with the administration to ensure that those residents know what's going on, what's the plan, and et cetera. So I just want to make sure that we have what we need for that. Something like that, not just for me, but for other counselors.
So the good news is, as the bird just told me in my ear, is that the postage is paid by the treasurer. So that is a good thing as well. Thank you, CAFO. So we do have some money in there as well that might be helpful with some papers or something else. So I think if there's a desire, I think that desire can be met.
Councilor Levy?
Yes, just only for information regarding what you're asking for. It's a proposal regarding sending a correspondent that is gonna come. We have it at the ordinance, it's being sent there right now to the full council, and we're waiting for the attorney just to write the ordinance, you know, and how they gonna come, how we're gonna get to our residents. So anytime that something is happening in a neighborhood or an area, it's gonna be obligatory to send correspondent information to the residents in the area, just for information.
Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor.
Can I just add to,
Sure.
Counselor, thank you,
Councilor
Chair, through you, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, but sometimes, you know, sometimes life happens and I don't know, things get, they
No,
fall
it's understandable,
the cracks, so
it
it's-
is understandable,
Yeah,
yes.
they fall
it's
through the, so
understandable.
if for any reason, like any of us counselors need to step up and do, you know, and help out, that's what I want, to make sure that we have that available.
All right, I have a few questions. So last year, during the budget season, we actually discussed something that you actually went, you know, and talk about it a little bit. And that was the $500 allocation for counselors.
Right.
Is that going to happen this year?
At this point, first of all, we haven't even spent some of the $500 that we put last year's budget. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think what we want, pardon me? No, what I'm suggesting to you is listen, as counselors, we can do what we want. I suggest to you, you're Councilor Del Rosario, I love the smile. You know, if this counselor decides that we're not going to put the money toward the translation services, but we rather keep it to spend on things that are here, perhaps what we could do is find out what is it that we need to help us do the job. That's probably the better question to ask. Is there something that we need right now that this is the time? Let's find out what that is.
Council President, but that was not the question that I asked. That's the better question to ask, but that's not what I asked. I'm asking you straightforward.
Sure.
Are we going to have the allocation of the $500 for us to spend it in our discretion within the law limits that is not illegal?
No.
We're going to have that? No.
Listen, if this body wants, so here's the thing. If this body says, we're not going to want to put all that money toward that, I'm going to listen to what this body wants to do. If this body says to me that we'd rather spend whatever that is, I, as a counselor, would not be looking for it, but perhaps you do, maybe we can make that work. But I do want to get some sort of consensus, right, from my colleagues, because it is our budget, and if that's what you want to do, we can certainly make that work. So I'm sorry about being ambiguous on that. My thinking was to go ahead and fund something that we can all agree upon that's needed, but if you think that that's a different way to go, then we can certainly go there.
Council President,
Yeah.
I think that the only councilor that didn't agree with the $500, it was you. But we all agree about having the $500. A lot of us spend it in one way. Perhaps the $500 that it was allocated for myself, I actually pay in front for placards so that the council can use. A lot of us also use it for to look professional and some teachers, some sweaters and stuff like that, which look great. And others use it for postcards and stuff like that to be able to communicate with the constituents. Is at the discretion of the city council. On my end, what I'm asking, I thought that the discussion that we had last year, it was going to be something that it was going to become an item on the budget, just like any others, at the discretion of the city council. Not putting us on a position that we're not going to say yes to it because we need the translation. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that, Council President. Because now that we need the translation so much that this city needs it for such a long time, and we're going to have that, and because we're going to have that, we're going to have to sacrifice a $500 discretionary budget that council had last year because of that item. That doesn't look good, because we actually need to sacrifice one thing to make sure the other thing happen. And that's absolutely wrong.
Mr. Chair.
Give me a minute. So, the $500, me personally was gonna use it for something else. You mentioned that we have awards. Guess what? We have awards that a couple of councilors put the 500s on there. But it is not fair that we're gonna have to use that $500 that I put on there and other city council $500 to put on there for awards when there were other councilors that didn't, but preferred to use something else. I think that to be fair to everybody, we should allocate the $500 to each councilor and spend it as they will, on their will. So whatever they need that is legal. Nobody's gonna do nothing illegal, like they did it last year. I think that we discussed that, and having that discussion today again, I don't think it will make sense if councilors were happy with it. Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And going back to that, that's what I'm saying. There's no increase in our budget. And the CAF was there, and when we talk about increase, the CAF, you know, but that's fine. I see every department here that has an item line talking about uniforms or allowance to get something. We are the only department that doesn't have that. And $500 is not gonna make a difference in all of us, because again, once again, if I gotta go and pay half for what I need, I'll go ahead and pay half.
And you have. Yeah.
And I will.
And you have, yeah.
But it's unfair for us that we need, look at you doing now. Oh, if you want the $500, I'll give it to you, but we're not gonna have translation service. We should allocate that money for translation service in an item line here in our budget and ask for that money. And ask for that money. This is what we're gonna need for the year, for this, and this budget would be more money for the use of our constituents. Translation services for our constituents, and we shouldn't be putting ourselves, maybe not have a cup of coffee, because we didn't put enough money in our budget. We working with the same amount every year, and we struggle every year. Again, you said that we can do whatever, you councilors can do whatever you need to do, but it's not. It's not. When we ask Teresa for something, Teresa's afraid to ask anything because she wants you to know and give the yes or the no, because we don't have enough. And that's what I'm talking about. The $21,000 that we need, it should be an item line right here in our budget, because that's new, and that's a service that we're gonna provide to our constituents. And that's money that we don't need to take out of this budget that we've been using for years. That should be added to our budget. I mean, I'm gonna save, again, I'm gonna save an insurance on my constituents more than $21,000. Put that on my insurance, put it in the budget, if it's possible. But don't put us to struggle, grabbing $500 from here and $200 from here, and then, I'm not gonna say an excuse, but it is, make it an excuse, because this is what we need, to pay translation. Every department added money, every department used money. We are the only department that struggle for money, the only one. And we are the one that approve every single penny to everybody.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman? Of course. I'll make it brief. So last year, just as a reminder, we had extra money. We were thinking last year we were going to have some translation services and the mayor put extra money in the budget, right? That didn't happen, so we had extra money that we were going to do. This expectation that we should continue to do when there's money assigned for something, keep in mind the timing. I'm about to sign the MOU here in a matter of the next 10 days. We just selected the group. We've been going through this for most of this fiscal year. So, the challenge here, and I understand, and I think of myself as a vessel to try to provide the council whatever it needs to be successful. I may personally disagree with some of the things, but that's me as an individual, not me as the council president. Because, let me finish my thought on this, if we decide that this is where you want to go, councilors, and the group decides this is what the group wants, the council president is going to abide by that. It's going to, because this is a group that we're making a group decision however the vote goes. So if a councilor says, we need that for whatever it is, it would be my preference to have this kind of conversation before this evening, where you say, we need something, we need whatever it is that we need to do our jobs. What is our job? Our job is to represent people, and we need the tools that we need to be able to represent them well. I think we have the tools, but apparently there's other things that people want. I don't know exactly what that is, but like, you want another 500, I don't know what that's for, but there's other things. If there's a way that we could help each other out, let's try to do that. And it's not that I'm being I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to be pragmatic and trying to apply what is left over now for the greater good, for the residents. But if we put less toward that, we put less toward that. It would be for 500 times 9, that's $4,500. I mean, that's what that would account to. It's going to be us. So I'll take my cues from this council. I will.
Again, it's not us. I'm assuming that every department head sit down with every member of the department that runs every type of the department to find out what their needs were. You did this budget on your own, or maybe with Teresa.
No, we worked together with the administration to get
there was no question.
Balanced budget across the board for everybody.
Well, it was no question asked to none of us. There was no question asked to none of us. To none of us, the 9 of us or 8 of us, there was no question asked to none of us or what we really needed. So that's why we're discussing this here. It shouldn't be here, the discussion. It should have been back there. Councilor, I'm going to put this together, and this is how it's going to go. What do you guys think? But it was never put that way. It was never put that way, and that's why we're discussing here. And again, it embarrassed me, but this is the only scenario that we have to put this out here. And at the end of the day, when you say that you will go with whatever we say, you are the one that signed the invoices. And how many times did I submit an invoice for $100? How many times did I submit it for $100? How many times? And you know how much did I pay on my own pocket? $200. Out of my own pocket, $200 to serve my constituents, for items that I need to serve my constituents. And again, this is an item line that should be brought up here.
We didn't have a council.
We
didn't. So there was money set aside a year or so ago for this translation service. We weren't able to pull the trigger for a variety of reasons, right? The administration, gave us more money. Look at your figures, Counselor. Take a look at the budget. You can look at what we were given in FY21, and you can see the significant increase that we've received over that time.
A significant increase?
Well, there's an increase.
No,
You said significant increase.
I didn't say it.
You say significant.
I did. I just said it. Yes, I said significant.
I have nothing else to ask. I mean, it's okay. I mean, we're going to go with this, but I mean, listen.
Special services went from 11 to 30,000.
Council President,
That's 19. That's
Council President, I remember basically last year, we had most likely the same conversation, and we were fighting back there for coffee. So, we were fighting for coffee. Coffee in our office, coffee, right? I could supply the councilors coffee all year round. But we had that conversation back then. We couldn't buy coffee. At the end of the day, we bought coffee. Thank you. So this year, it's going to be the same thing. Something else is going to come up. Things are change. Things are change. Things are increase. And now, it's a different consult now than what it was 20 years, 18 years ago when you were elected. So there's more needs, there's more things. There's things that we do out there now for constituency. Back in those days, you guys never did. So every year, there's an increase in everything out there. And we're not asking money for us. We're asking money for this chamber, for the councilor to be able to use, for on budget, for us to have what you said that we need for be successful. And again, there should be a line in here of an increase in the budget of $21,000.
We just found that out, Council. Let's be fair.
Okay.
We just found out how much this is going to cost within the past 2 weeks. And I would also, if you look at your supplies, 2 years ago, before COVID, $580, now $10,000. If you look at professional service, $11,000, now $30,000. You can see it from, I mean, we have a small budget, but that's a pretty big increase for both of those line items. And listen,
President,
yeah.
I'm gonna give you a perception of that, when it comes to the 21,000 and when it comes to the $500 for the budget description. Councilor Levy, are you agree with the 500?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario, do you agree with the 500? Yes. Councilor Infante, do you agree with the 500?
Yes.
Council, the chair of this committee also agree with the $500. So you have 4 councilors out of 9 that agree upon, and everybody used it last year. I don't know if you use it, but everybody used it last year because they thought it was a good thing. And everybody was happy about it. The councilors look more professional, some of them that, bought different teachers and stuff like that. The placard that we use look very well represented with that $500. The postcard that I saw, they look great. That's something that I would like to do as well. And that's basically, the council is telling you, we want it. At least this committee is telling you, we want it.
I'm not thinking you're hearing an argument from the president on this, FYI. I said already this evening, if the council wants it, we will make this thing work. I will also remind the council and the committee that members from the council, I'm not going to name the names, have also asked for money, and it was provided to them at, what's the name of the place? Henry's Jewelry and Awards.
Yeah, I sent the $500 over there.
And that money's been untapped, so we have put the money.
No, we have used the money, some money we have used.
We
like
have.
Perhaps the placard that we give to the former state representative.
No, that's exactly it. There were 2 that were spent for that so far, and many of this has been untapped.
But the thing is the following. The $21,000 for the translation services, as Councilor Rosario was mentioned, we should have that as part of the new budget automatically. Okay, you didn't know that. You didn't know the total amount. Let's be fair here. Okay, you didn't know the number. We just got the number. So my question to Mark will be the following. Mark, is it possible that we allocate these $21,000 or perhaps a little extra for the translation services once we actually approve the budget with the increase? Is it possible for us to request it? I know we're not allowed to add funds to the budget, but we can only cut or bought off the budget. We cannot add to the budget, but it is possible that the mayor can send that allocation of the translation services for the amount that is starting today, $21,000, maybe more.
Well, we do have, in the budget, there's 30,000, so 21,000 certainly would fit in this $30,000 line item. That 30,000 also has to fund the staff that handles the video for audio visuals for the council meetings, and you have 10,000 in operating supplies. So I'm not sure, I would say, do all the things you need to do in it, and if that money gets exhausted, and I worked with the council president today, there's some money from last year that can carry over into this year to help you out with this year's budget. So I don't think you'll have a shortfall, but if you did have a shortfall sometime during the year, we could come down to the council for an additional appropriation, or depending on what the recommendation is, maybe there's money in another department that could pick up some of the translation services, if that's the
So essentially-
that's causing the shortfall.
Essentially, what I'm hearing from you, if we got on a shortfall, we can ask for funds, and that could be allocated at some
Yeah, any
point.
department can ask for a supplemental budget after the budget's passed. I mean,
So-
we try and find money elsewhere in the budget, so we don't have to come down for a supplemental. But sometimes their departmental budgets have to be augmented, so we kind of figure it out, like maybe a postage, for example. We do pick up the postage. There's a meter in the treasurer's office. But if there is somebody that needed some mailing, for example, the treasurer sometimes or the purchasing department may have some extra funds in their budget that we can, pay somebody else's bill for. And that's kind of how we get around with, we use existing money that's appropriated from another department if we can.
So there's no need for, trade-off, like the trading for this one or that one, or?
No, we'll just kind of figure it out. In other words, if you need a few $1,000s, instead of coming down and doing a supplemental budget for a few $1,000s, I'd rather see what you need it for and see if some other department has the resources to maybe pay one of your invoices, and that solves the problem without coming all the way down to the council for an additional appropriation.
All right, no problem. So, Council President, one last question that I have. You say that
Of course. Of course. No, I think, and listen, despite what we heard earlier this evening, I've got a very much an open door. I'm a guy that returns phone calls, I return text, I'm easy to talk to. If a counselor really wants something, I'm always available to speak to counselors. So my point here is that if a counselor really wants to do that, have the conversation. So I don't think I need a vote. I mean, I heard the conversation this evening. 4 city councilors, I heard, is what they want. There may be more, right? And we just heard what the CAFO just said, which I think is a blessing for all of us, right? So that's good news. So I'm willing to go ahead. I don't think we need a vote. I mean, if you want to make a vote, take a vote. That's up to
Council
you.
President, let me tell you, we're 9, and we're there, behind doors. You don't have to tell us, like, how you actually, how your open doors are. Like, we have great fights up there for the allocation of the funds, for the coffee issue, for the $500 issue. We don't have to say here that we have open policies. It's like difficult to deal with sometimes. And that's why we wanted to make sure that if we need to take a vote to make it official, we will. But I mean, I don't want to hear like later on, oh, your invoice got rejected. Like mine was rejected last year. And you know how I actually brought that up? I didn't bring it to the back of the door. Yeah. I brought it up to the council during the budget, and we had that discussion here. So I don't want to go through that anymore. So do we have a compromise here?
Just go ahead and start spending with other departments. So that's the concern that we're hearing here. So I just, there's one bit, and this is really weird because we're equals, right? I'm a colleague of yours, right? I am the council president, but I'm also your colleague. I sit among you, we take the votes, we do things together collectively. So this is a very weird kind of conversation, but I'm part of this body with you. Now, in the city government, I'm also the department head of this department, which means that ultimately I have a little bit of responsibility to make sure that certain things are taken care of. One of them is to pay for invoices and I just want the CAFO to speak in general terms. I mean, if there's someone from his office that wanted to go ahead and buy something without telling the department head something, that would not be a good thing. But there's a certain order, because part of my job is to make sure that we have the money, right? That we have the money, that we're going in the right place. That's part of why you chose me, so that I'm watching to make sure that we have what we need to have, so that we're not like this and we're handcuffed at the end. And I'm just trying to measure out to the best of my abilities to make sure that we're doing things the right way. It would be helpful, not hearing it from me, but it'd be helpful from the CAFO to talk about, in any department, including ours or anybody else, what's the procedure as to how things go, which I think will be helpful to hear.
Yeah, I'll just briefly explain it. In our ERP system, Munis, everybody knows we have that. All the departments do what's called a requisition. They requisition, oh, I want to buy some office supplies. And that requisition, there's a workflow that we have programmed. So it starts with in your case, it's Teresa who does the requisition. You probably present her with something, and then she'll put a requisition in for something, and then in Munis it goes from the requisitioner, which is Teresa, to the department head, which in this case is Council President LaPlante. And then it also goes through the comptroller and the mayor and so forth for the whole workflow. It's all electronic. So that's, every department has that same, a similar workflow. It goes from the clerk to a manager, to the department head, to the comptroller, to the purchasing agent to print the purchase order, to the mayor to approve anything over $1,000 goes to the mayor. So that's the general process for every city expenditure in the city.
Perfect. So the thing is, like, Mark, to give you a quick answer on that, the thing is, like, we discussed this. We discussed here, we agree upon the $500 expenditure. Mm-hmm. And when the bill come up, it was denied. And then we need to bring that up to the council, because I don't want to talk about behind doors. So I want to talk in public so everybody knows what we're doing. So I brought it up to the council, and then there was a more energetic discussion, not to say it was heated up, because we already discussed that. We already say we're gonna have the discrepancy of spending the $500. And then all of a sudden, when the bill started coming in, it was denied. And then we need to discuss that again and again and again, and it was like a little
I would
challenging.
take that up with your department head, which is the council president. I mean, you know,
they're not
which
shy
I
about
think.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, like, of course, we discussed that on this body, at this level. So I'm gonna pass it over to Councilor Infante. She have her hands raised for a while.
Thank you. I actually want to say, we have a long list tonight, and I think the same thing has been said like 10,000 different times within our own subcommittee and also the council president hearing our concerns. We're beating a dead horse. I think our concerns and our expressions has been loudly heard by the council president. He did mention that multiple times. So at this point, what is the action item? Because what we're doing is repeating ourselves over and over again.
So the question was whether or not we have the allocation in place. And he already heard the opinion of the city of 4 city councilors. Councilor Levy.
Thank you, Council President. My question is for Mr. Ayanello. So we hear our fellow council talking about the situation that we had in the back. We need to work and renovate the back of the office. It is true. It is very hard for any one of us to bring somebody and meet with them in the condition practically that is our office. We need partition, but we need to clean it and we need to modify. So our secretary even asking for, like, we said that we're gonna get a new desk for her, but it's not just only a new desk. It's just to renovate the complete area. So, are we gonna use it? Capital improvement money, or how we can do it, but we need this right away. It's not tomorrow. Look at the camera.
Well,
So people are complaining, okay, because they are not able to see whatever, the channel 22, the channel 45, 44, they are not able to watch anything. We are not hiding anything in here. We are very transparent, transferring or talking about what we are talking, like what we are doing in here right now, but people feel outside that we are not showing anything on the channel because we want to hide something.
Yeah, no,
So we need to fix all those problems, and we need to allocate money to make sure that the city chamber is open, clear, transparent for everyone in the city of Lawrence.
yeah, my suggestion would be to contact Jorge Jaime and ask him for the renovation, see if he can get some bids and some prices, and that would be something we would take out of the capital improvement budget. There's a, in the council, or the city's budget, we have a line item for approximately 1.3 million. That'll be, that's in here for pay-go capital. That's, we're required to put 2.5% of the prior year's tax levy in a fund, so it's about 1.3 million. We, depending on what the estimate is, you know, maybe we could use some of that next year to fund your improvements. Otherwise, we might do a small capital improvement bond. But again, it usually starts with the DPW director, get some pricing, the facilities, building and facilities manager can come in, probably get some ideas. If you tell them what you're looking for, approximately what that would cost. Is it a $50,000 job, or is it a $250,000 job?
Yeah, that could be. I don't know how much it's going to be the cost.
The expert.
But at least we want to be, you know, we have a lot of people that are coming on here that meet with us, okay? And I feel like it's, this is what Council De Rosario that said that he preferred, and I do it the same thing. I prefer to meet with whatever, you know, outside of this office than to bring them over here.
So if we can get some ideas as to what you're looking for, get an estimate, that would be presented to the mayor, and the mayor would decide, hey, maybe we can use the PAYGO capital if it's small enough, or maybe we have to do a separate capital improvement plan. Both of those would require council approvals, because they have to be voted on by the council. So I think that's the process. So if you're in a rush to get something done, I would get the.
Wait, we need
DPW.
to rush, and we need to redesign the complete area and make sure that those camera works.
Well, a camera's a
and
different
gets
issue.
The
That's
way that we can, that people at least can see us and see what we're doing in here.
Well, the cameras, I think, are a different issue, because there's money that comes in for the cable, the LCAT, I guess, is where it went.
But this is something that has
And
to
that
be also
would take care of it.
communicated to the public, because the public do not understand that Channel 22 is not working for some reason. And the public need to know what is the reason why it's not working.
Yeah, I know, they got the money to televise the public programming, and I'm not sure why it's off. Have to take it up with them.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Council President.
I just made one really quick statement. So I think that it's been greased. Talk to Mr. Jaime and Mr. Castillo behind me. So the process is beginning, and I want to work with everybody on that. Thank you.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you. So I'm going to repeat myself. We are beating a dead horse right now. We're repeating the same things. So what does this body want to do? What is the action item so the council president can go back and actually do something about the concerns that we have said for the 30,000th time? What is the action item from this discussion? What is the takeaway? Because I'm hearing the same things in different ways. And literally, we just spent an hour discussing the same items, saying the same concerns, when we have a whole list of other departments to go through. What are we doing moving forward?
Okay, I mean,
All right,
we're looking, Council President, sorry.
Councilor-
I mean, again,
Rosario?
thank you. Again, I mean, the 21,000 shouldn't be in jeopardy. It shouldn't be in jeopardy. Oh, if you guys want to do this, I'll take money out of this and that. I'm willing to compromise. If this item, the 21,000, is going to be in jeopardy, I will donate my city council salary so you can use it into that. The complete salary, you can put it into that, or the 21,000, and the rest you can put it from your budget. And that way, the money is not jeopardized. But that's a service that we need to provide to our constituents, and shouldn't be jeopardizing by $200, $300, $500 or whatever. Once again, it's a dead horse that we're beating. This budget should have a major increase to be used, because everything had changed, and now we're asking for new services. Thank you.
Council President, I have one last question. On page 26, if you can open your budget book. The city council is responsible for performing an audit of the city of Lawrence every year.
Yep.
We have $70,000 this year allocated for the audit of the city of Lawrence. This is basically how we tell the people how transparent we are when it comes to the city's finances. Last year, we actually present the audit at this committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, and it was a few findings, not major findings, but. And I encourage you to look at it. This is an open business from last year still today.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Still today, the audit is still an open business at the city council level. And I would like you to look at it, look at the video. You will see what I'm talking about. Last year, when it comes to presenting the audit, you probably don't know. Don't worry about it. I just giving you information so you can look at the video and inform yourself better, so we can discuss that on a later meeting. But when the audit get presented to the full council, that meeting something else was happening. And we were not able to present the audit on the way that it's supposed to be presented. So no information basically was presented, or a minimum amount of information was presented. And the item was like, okay, we're gonna come back to it, but we never did. At one point, I told you, the audit was not presented as it was supposed to. So I would like you to look into it again, to that video that happened, I believe it was in October, November, something like that. I don't remember.
If I could just comment on that, Counselor, we do have the FY22 audit, which has been received, and we will put that on the council agenda. I'm going to try and get it down for Thursday noon's deadline to present the FY22 budget to the city council. So that'll come on the agenda in the next meeting or so.
We're not talking about this
Well,
current
you were
one,
talking
but
about FY21, so FY22 was just completed.
FY21,
So it's time to come back again, so you can ask 21 or 22
Yeah.
as you see fit, but
But I would like the council president to look at that video so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe the date will be a little challenging to find, but I mean, you'll be able to find it. So please look into it and see if still an open business in the way that I see it. We were not able to discuss the audit, and I wouldn't like that to happen again. If it was a mistake or we just oversee it, we didn't come back to it, that's fine. But I want to make sure that at least we are responsible when it comes to the audit. And if it's still an open business, let's close that up and make sure that the audit is being presented, open for questioning, and transparent. Probably a mistake, I don't know, it was on my end. Just look at the video and you will see what I'm talking about. Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to the city council budget? Councilor Levy.
Yes, just only one last question. I see that on Fly 21, the audit was 77,179. But is the price getting down? No?
I think that was the expenditure. That was probably an amount carried over from the prior year. There's a part of this audit fee. The audit fee is roughly $100,000 to $110,000 per year. $70,000 comes out of the city budget. We charge a little bit to the water sewer. We charge a little bit to the community development, and we charge a little bit to the school department. So that's who pays the balance of it. I think what happened, the end-of-year report, the school end-of-year report has agreed upon procedures that are done by the audit firm for the school department. So that usually comes late after the city audit. They do this end-of-year report review, and that invoice was probably paid after along the 70,000 plus that 7,000. That 7,000, I believe, is for the end-of-year report work. So in general, we only pay 70,000, so that's why it was 77,000. They had 70,000 from the prior year and then 7,000 the previous year that carried over.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Any other questions in regard to the city council budget? No. Council President, thank you so much, and I see you
So welcome.
Next week. The next item that we have today,
The mayor's office is here. So.
the mayor's office. So we would like to call the mayor's office, and for those who would like to know the page is 28 to 30.
Yep. This is your budget, and then there's your positions that you have. Very, very little change.
changes
this
in the
one
salary.
We cut this out, you took that out of the ARPA money.
Yeah.
The mayor's office is here for the budget of fiscal year 2024. Welcome, Mr. So, Spanner. Yeah, Spencer is my brother-in.
Committee Chairman, good evening. Council members, good evening. Octavian Spanner, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. I also have our Chief of Staff for any other questions that you will have.
Just go through the budget.
Well, for personnel services, we have, as you know, last year we came before you with several positions in the mayor's office that we went through ordinance, and which all of them have been approved by you. Salary consideration has been based on the Collins Center report, the UMass Collins Center report with the salary ranges, and the mayor has proposed salaries based on the level of expertise and work that has been performed or is being performed in his office. In the purchase of services, in the other purchases services, item number 3 in that section, the mayor has removed that item. And we have basically eliminated and placed that under free cash. Under supplies, we have a slight increase of $5,000 based on the cost of supplies that went up, that we have experienced an increase. And in the other charges and expenses, the mayor increased the out-of-state travel to $5,000. And the reason for that is because it's going to require more travel especially in meeting with the federal delegation. And also with state delegation, it's going to be some travels that are going to be required. In dues and membership, we have included $2,000 because we realize that there's some information and also membership to certain agencies, or let's say institutions, that we need to apply. And we need to be, he has increased the expenses to $2,000. And for other expenses, we also have a slight increase, has remained the same. So there hasn't been much changes in other charges and expenses.
Councilors, any question in regard to the mayor's budget? Councilor Infante.
Thank you. Hi, Advisor Spanner. Question regarding under purchase of services, the advertising section. This remains the same as last year, that it's advertising for department-wide under the mayor's office.
No, this has changed. You want to come and explain it? Come. Yeah.
In general, last year, we moved advertising from the departmental budgets to the mayor's budget so they could make sure to get advertised in the right spot. This year, pardon me, a few of the departments, such as our purchasing department, I think the treasurer's office, got their advertising back because it's more perfunctory. It's just to have an ad for tax titles and those required bid advertisements. But everything else remains in the mayor's budget. And they've increased the mayor's budget for advertising line item because there's more things they're trying to advertise. The mayor's trying to make sure, you know, the word gets out to the constituents about what's going on in the city. So that budget was increased a little bit from 43,000 to 65,000, and so it's a $21,000 increase. But again, they removed the 150,000 in consulting services or other purchase services to make up for that.
Thank you. I don't know if you recall from last year, but I was actually was not in favor of removing the advertisement line from all the departments, and I still stand by that. Being a former marketing director myself and having a similar system, I know how difficult that is, especially when you're trying to do something quickly, and I appreciate that some departments got their advertisement line back, but I still strongly believe that every department should have the ones that did have their advertisement line, I think they should get it back.
Sorry, I leave it to the chief of staff because he was more involved into that.
Good evening. William Castro, Mayor's Chief of Staff. Last year, if I remember correctly, we removed it to kind of look at it from the outside the box and see who was getting the advertisement and not to favor some people that were getting more advertisement than the others. So this year, we decided it's been fair enough. Now we give it back to the people that need it. Is that fair? Oh, okay, thank you.
And just on,
They all get it back. Everyone got it back just the way they had it.
just,
And our office increased a little bit because we want to keep the public at bay.
Thank you.
In addition, we have different projects that we're working on, like the one that we just came from, Tamburello site, that required a public hearing. We have the Merrimack paper that's also going to require a public hearing. We are looking at the junkyards right behind Market Basket, that we're going to have public hearings as well, and there's a series of other meetings that are relevant to development in the city that, you know, we need to advertise.
just on that note, you know? Just on that note, to continue the questioning on that line item. So if every department already get the funds back, what is it that you're gonna do, increasing the advertising for 21,000 now, with the total amount now 65,000, if every department get the money back? So I think that, and that should be reduced, because every department get the money back, right? They're gonna do the job, the work for advertising, and now you guys gonna have extra $65,000 compared to 2021, 2022, which the mayor's office didn't have none. So what is it they're gonna do with that $65,000? Not, because I'm assuming that you guys are not gonna do any advertising that is related to other department, because they already gonna do it. So what is it that you guys gonna do with that 65,000?
Because the mayor's office is also going to be involved in different other meetings that we have, and holding consideration that cost of advertisement also went up. I mean, that's factoring in as well, the cost of advertisement. The cost of advertisement compared to last year has already experienced a 25% increase compared to last year.
Understand that, but 2021, 2022, the mayor's office did none advertising from their office.
Right.
So that was not something that the mayor's office do until last year, that the mayor's office removed the advertisement from everybody, and now you guys were doing it. So if you guys give it back to those departments to do the work, why the budget actually increased on the mayor's office.
Because the
That
mayor,
should be a reduction of the advertisement, because you give it back to the departments. So I want to know, like, what is it that you guys going to do with the 65,000 if you guys are not going to advertise the departments that actually need it?
no, but the mayor's office need to advertise as well
And
for.
communicate with the community.
And to communicate with the community in terms of different initiatives that are. Can you say something?
Yeah, come on.
You want to say?
So the mayor's office has been very proactive in keeping the public, the citizens, very informed of what's going on in the city, events. There's also, we hire people to do videos for the city, and that's very costly.
That should be under purchase services, not advertisement.
No, that's under that, right?
150,000.
Yeah,
which-
it's under that.
Which basically, on that line item, in 2021, we have $3,500, and the mayor now have,
So we remove that and put it here.
Yeah, well, I think we just, you know, as I recall, this required, more advertising was going to be done. Nestor, the communications director, did a lot of, there's a lot of videos that they've been taking of what's happening in the city, and the mayor wants to get those, the word out of what's happening in the city, so there's some video editing that was being done. So that was part of the advertisement, is getting the video editing done for advertising. So Nestor's the one that can best answer it, but that's what I recall in our meeting. He requested an increase to the budget to get the minimum amount that the mayor needs done for next year.
Yeah, for the 4 videos that we did last year, there were 4 videos. I believe the holidays, right? And there were a total of, yeah, around 6,000 to 8,000 each. The one for the holiday was more expensive. That was $8,000. And so if you consider that, plus the other advertisement that with planned activities for this year, it's going to be more.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you. From what I'm hearing, the confusion here is, and this might be helpful for the mayor's office, there's a difference between advertising and marketing. The video services, that's marketing.
Yes.
Advertising is when you're
Is
paying.
when you do it with.
Yeah, when you're paying to get information out, like if you're paying the Eagle Tribune to advertise a meeting. And perhaps the mayor's office should break that down separately, marketing services and advertising services. So that way this confusion does not happen. And I do know how much, being a marketer myself, I do know that videos are, I mean, sometimes videos can be up to $20,000. So that, I know how costly it is, but it might be beneficial for the councilors to understand the difference between advertising and marketing.
So right now, they're both under advertising. So.
Is where the confusion is coming from.
Would you like to put advertising and marketing, and then we can break down both?
I think that might be helpful.
Yeah,
That's
because
also
in that way
probably.
you can put names on it, like you say, videos, okay, now we say on marketing, we have this amount of money for videos and stuff like that, and those questions are not.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. Thanks for the input.
Councilors, any other question? Councilor Levy?
Flight 23, for Flight 23 budgets, the administrative aid special project was receiving a salary of 75. Now, this year, it came down. I see that all of the other increase in salary, but this one was down. Why? What is? That's page 30.
Administrative aid,
Administrative aid special projects.
You have $5,000 less.
that's the, Julio Tomas. Yeah, because the salary that, no, we reduced, that's the salary that this individual is making, based on the
Para last
Collins
year,
Center.
yeah, last year was 75, this year is 70.
Because last year, the individual that's filling this position was working on a consultant capacity, isn't that so? And he was working in another position that was, which he was getting a stipend, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I don't know, I just think the
And now,
person making less than the previous person.
yeah, what I do know is that the mayor fixed his salary to 70,000, so it came out minus $5,000. It came down, based on the proposed salary range.
All the positions have a range.
Yeah. So we follow the range, the salary range.
From the Collins Center?
Yes.
So that's a follow-up question on that, Mr. Spanner. So these salaries that are here for the mayor's office, it is a total of 10 positions, and salary increase compared to last year is $184,500 for the 10 individuals that are there.
Right.
One individual will get a reduction of $5,000 in salary, coming from $75,000 to $70,000. The total amount of the mayor's office increasement on salary is for $184,500. So my question would be the following. I know that a couple of those positions, as I can remember correctly, are following the recommendation that the city council approved. If I look at that,
The salary range?
if I look at that report, am I gonna find every one of these positions within the range of the report?
Yes.
So none of them are gonna be upside on the positive?
None.
Okay, I'll look at it. I don't have the paper with me, but I'll look at each one of those. I remember like 3 or 4 of those positions that are within the limits, but not all of them. So I'm taking a word, so all of them are within the range that was approved.
Correct.
Mr.
Councilor Levy?
Yes, another thing is like, according to the report, when we did the approval also for the city council, we are approve an increase of major salary of two.
No, that's in 4 years.
Huh?
That's in 4 years. That's for the new mayor.
That's for the new mayor.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councilor Rosario. Councilor, there is any other question? All right, I guess that there is no more questions. We will be in touch with you with follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the recommendation.
All right, the next item that we have is the administration and finance. If you look at your book, it's on page 31. Within that item, we're gonna be looking at the Office of Budget and Finance, the Controller's Office, the Purchasing Office, Information and Technology, Assessor's Office, Treasurer's Office, Tax Collector's Office, Office of Personnel, Revenue Reviews, Debt Services, Risk Management, Charters and Choice Schools, Other Finance Uses, Intergovernmental Assessment, Employees Benefits, and that's it. So, Mark, you have a little bit of a list.
Yeah, we have quite a bit, so I'll try and review somewhat quickly to get through it all. I'll start as is listed, because it's the next couple of pages in the Office of Administration and Finance begins on page 31. And page 31 is the summary of all of the divisions within within my department. So the Office of Budget and Finance, the Comptroller's Office, Purchasing Office, Information Technology, the Assessor's Office, the Treasurer's Office, Tax Collector's Office, and then the Office of Personnel. So those are departments within my department, or divisions within my department, and the Office of Administration and Finance begins on page 32. That's just covers 2 positions. That's my position and the budget analyst / internal auditor. So those are the 2 positions that are funded in this budget. Other than that, all the other line items were level funded. Let's see, if I can just quickly go through all of the comptroller's office has roughly the same thing. We level funded all of the other than personal services. We just increased the personal services for the positions in accordance with the Collins Center report. So again, on page 34 and 35 is the comptroller's office. That includes the payroll department along with the comptroller. So there's, again, the same number of people we had last year. We had 7 FTEs, and we have 7 positions this year as well. The next department's a purchasing department. That is, again, there was an increase in advertising because we put the advertising back in the purchasing department. And there were 2 positions last year, and there's 2 positions this year as well. The Information Technology Department, that department is, yep, sure.
Before you continue with,
Okay. Okay, you want to stop at each one? That's fine.
or if they have any question, and then we may.
Yep.
Councilors, we just saw the personal service summary on page 33. 2 positions. There's any questions on that? I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
So can you please define what the budget analyst and internal auditor does?
Yeah, the budget analyst is someone who manages, looks at all the departments. They do special projects. We've had the position vacant for like a year and a half, and it's, we've been kind of putting a strain on our department. So we filled the position this year. We went back down to the council, if you recall, about 6 months or so ago, because the position was vacant for more than 6 months, so we needed permission of the council to fill it. Our last budget analyst left from our office and had quite a bit of training, and then went to the school department business office for more money. So then we left that position vacant for about I'd say a good year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then we kind of filled in the best we could, Ramona and Lynn and I. But having the position filled has been really helpful, and that's why we requested the permission to fill it last year. So that the position is just supposed to be doing special projects as we see fit, but pretty much analyzing all the departmental budgets, make sure we find out when any of the departments are in a little trouble financially. I have her keep track of all the payrolls for each pay period for all the departments, particularly police, fire, and some of the larger departments. So those are some of the things she just does on a regular basis. And as she gets acclimated to the position, and we'll be giving her more and more complicated things to do.
Within your position, now that you define that, it's amazing what a person do. Makes $70,000. It's getting an increase of $7,451. But thank you for explaining that. Also, within your position, I noticed that you deal with other finance of the city, but you also deal with the negotiation of the different unions. What's the status on that? How many unions we have out of contract at this point in the city of Lawrence?
I didn't bring the list, but I think I can. The ones that are out of contract right now, we're in discussions with the firefighters and the patrol union, the superior officers union. They're waiting to see what happens with the control. We haven't started negotiations with them. And then the other outstanding, where we have a laborers agreement where we're trying to finalize that agreement with the laborers union and the supervisors and administrators. We think we may have a tentative deal. Just has to go for ratification. And the last, carpenters and tradesmen / carpenters, we've had a couple of meetings with them, so that's not complete yet. I have 2 more that I'm sending down Thursday noon. We'll be sending down the inspectors and the parking attendants. So pretty much all, the ones that have settled were the clerical, the water unit, we're also in discussions with the library. They haven't settled yet, but we just had a meeting, so we think we might have a tentative deal there. We're just waiting for some final paperwork. So the ones we settled are the clerical, the water unit, and Local 3, Local 888. We have the parking attendants, the inspectors union.
When it comes to a percentage, what's the percentage of the unions that are being settled?
Well, we've had varying, roughly we're trying to settle for, we're trying to keep all the contracts 3-3-3. They're 3-year contracts, 3% per year. There's a few adjustments which we've made with some of the unions. A few of the unions got instead of a 3% increase, they got I think it was the parking attendants, we increased their pay to, they were quite low, so we increased their starting pay to like $18 an hour, so it might have been more than a 3% raise for that first year.
So
We did
basically
things
the
like that.
unions, we'll say 30% of the unions are set up already?
More than that, because there's only, I'd say like half the unions are settled. The large ones, the police, fire, are the ones that remain.
Like, another question on that. How many other CAFOs we have in the city, on the state of Massachusetts? I know there's a special situation.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that many, but there's at least 4 or 5. I think maybe there might be more, but 4 or 5, I would say.
At least, okay. All right, another thing that's gonna be helpful for each of those departments, I believe there are about 10. Do you mind going over the salary increments when it comes to each one of those? Not mentioning any names, but probably position and stuff like that.
Okay, so in the CAFO, there's 2, the budget analyst was just increased over whatever was in the budget in the prior year was $62,000. So using the Collins Center report, we increased the position to $70,000. The 191 is just for a 0.2 payroll period, so it's just the odd number, but it was the 70,000 salary plus the small minor amount. The CAFO was increased from 174,000 to 225,000. That was the mayor's decision. And we stayed within the Collins Center report on that one. That's about it for the Office of Budget and Finance. The next page is the Comptroller's page. As I just went through, there's other than personal services, there's no increase in the budget. They just have a little employee training, a few office supplies, that's about it. The positions, again, there's 7 positions last year, 7 positions this year. The increases to the salaries were the comptroller, the assistant comptroller. We did make a change. We eliminated a principal clerk because that clerk was doing accountant's duties, and we increased changed that title from a principal clerk to an accountant. So now we have 2 accountants in the department. They pretty much are responsible for preparing all the warrants for the bills and doing a lot of the financial analysis. So there's 2 positions there. The payroll director also is in this budget, as I mentioned a moment ago, and there's a change from a payroll specialist to a payroll supervisor is one of the changes that we made in this budget. And so there's a payroll supervisor in the budget, and there's still one payroll specialist, and then the 2 principal account clerks, we eliminated those positions.
So 2 were eliminated and
Yeah.
2 were
One we made an accountant because they were doing accountant duties, and the other one we made a payroll specialist because they were assigned to the payroll of the department. So more aligned with what they actually did. So in essence, we have 3 people in charge of all the city's payroll. We have a payroll director, the payroll supervisor, and the payroll specialist who pretty much handles all the data entry of the work.
And on that change, there was a salary increase for that, to that person of about 54,000?
For which position? For the accountant went from, because there's 2 of them, instead of 1 at 50,000, there's 2 at 103,000. Yep.
Yeah, you might continue.
So that's pretty much the comptroller's office. I'll flip the page to page 36 for the purchasing department. And again, they got their advertising back, but other than that, other than personal services, we're level funded. As you can see, there's just a few thousand for supplies and books and subscriptions. The employee training is for the purchasing department to get certified. They're certified by the State Office of Procurement. The 2 positions there are the purchasing agent and a principal accounts clerk. These are union positions, so there's no increase in this budget per se. The principal account clerk was the previous principal account clerk was at a step 5, and the new principal account clerk by contract had to start at step 1, but that's the union we're close to finalizing with. And then, or we did finalize with the clerical union, I'm sorry. And then the purchasing director, that's in a different union, so that the wage increase is just reflected here, just the step increases from the prior year. The information technology department's the next one.
Well,
That's,
let me ask to see if the council have any questions. I know
Sure.
Stephanie Infante. Right. Council, is any other questions in regard to the purchasing offices? Purchase office. I hear none, so you might continue.
okay. So information technology is the next department on page 38. Again, we pretty much level funded that budget. It just moved a line item. There is additional line item for computer software for $16,000. That was the only increase he really received, it is other than personal services. This department, we did increase by 1 FTE. We have an MIS director. We're going to requesting that the network administrator, which is already a ordinance position, be implemented so we can promote someone from within to that position, and then we'd like to backfill that technician with another technician. So next year there would be go from a department of 4 to a department of 5. We really would like to see 1 more position be added, so we're going to try and add another position next year as well. There's a lot of work that Carlos's staff is doing, and obviously with all the data security and all around us, there's always new attacks every day. We need to have this department properly staffed to maintain what they do and keep the city running.
The longevity, why was it moved?
Longevity is for people who hit a 5-year, then a 10-year, then a 15-year. So there must be, I don't have the list in front of me, but that 1,500 might be 1 person, or it might be 2 people that hit that 5-year mark. I don't know. Just 1. Okay, it's just 1.
I have Councilor.
Sure.
Thank you. For clarification purposes, I frequently hear that we need more technological supplies, and but you're saying that this budget is level funded. So do we, and maybe it's more a question for you because you do the daily work, what is more important or what is more needed, like technology, equipment, more of that, or do we need more personnel within that department?
I'm going to have Carlos expound on it, but let me just explain. In this budget is really just the operating costs. So in Carlos's budget, the All the copiers in the city get leased, so that's in this line item. And then the software, the largest software that we pay for is our ERP system, which is Munis. That's several $100,000 a year. We share that cost as the school picks up a piece of it. Carlos budget picks up the rest of it. All the other technology stuff, we've over the last 6 or 7 years, we've pretty much replaced all the equipment in the city. So and in the PAYGO capital that was just approved by the council a month or so ago, there was $200,000 for again, that was our telephone system needs to be replaced and some other stuff. But that's usually outside the operating budget, all the Nimbles, and I'll let Carlos kind of speak to some of his technology that he's replaced since he's been here. You want to just mention a couple things?
Sure, Councilor Levy.
How old are all the equipment that you have in your office, so on the IT department? How old are they right now?
For how long they've been working there?
No, how old
Old is the equipment.
the equipments that we are using right now?
Good evening, councilors. Well, we have so many equipment in that server room. We have some equipment that has been there for 5 years. We recently did a storage upgrade, due to the fact that we have this appliance called a Nimble. A Nimble is an appliance that it's like a hard drive, like a huge hard drive where all the data gets stored. So we kind of ran out of space on that, and we recently purchased a new one, which is 3 months old, basically. But the rest of the equipment, we're talking about from 4 to 5 years, what we have in there. And in the technology world, such equipment such as servers, firewall, and even computers, maximum life expectancy is 3 to 4 years max. Then after that, it's basically, if they still work, is a given.
If I do like some kind of analysis on the computers, let's say computer that we are using here at the City Hall, how old are they?
Well,
Some are quite old, but
yeah,
some are
from what I'm seeing, this is my basically second year working for the City Hall, and from past experience, I know we have computers more than 5 years old. And
Yeah, if I could just say, my computer just died maybe a month and a half ago, and I'm sure it was at least 5 years old. And it just, just died. IT came over, they have they've been reusing most of the components and just changing Carlos can explain, the hard drive, so we don't have to replace the whole computer, just a part of it, so. you can
Yeah,
explain
so,
that. Saves a lot.
like I said, when I started, I saw that, cost is really big, so it's not like in the private sector. So what I started doing is the old computers that we have, it's kind of refurbish them, where I go out, buy a solid state drive, put more RAM, then they'll start working as a brand new computer. So that's what I've been doing, just to kind of hold on, maybe 1 or 2 more years, because cost is a factor.
So practically, so we cannot say that we are close that we call a state of the art.
We moving forward, so the initiative is there, but we're not there yet, to be honest with you. In terms of state-of-the-art equipment, we're not even close. With a budget of 1.2, now 1.3, it's going to take a while.
Because
I mean, I'm just being blunt.
some of my fellow council for years are asking for a computer. And so many of them do not have a computer. Sometimes we need it. And if we look at the one that is inside, I think so. I've been here for 6 years, and they are very old.
I did have a conversation with President LaPlante because he actually sat down with me and told me the idea that he wants to redo that office. So I told him, I think it's a great idea. I will replace the phone system. I will replace the computer. Mark helped me get $200,000 set aside, which I will also invest, in getting new equipment. And I think it's a good opportunity to also invest it on that office. And then I know you guys want to bring the constituent in and, make it look presentable. And technology-wise, I'll make that happen since I have the fund to do so now. Yes, Councilor Infante.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you, Chair. So what I'm hearing, Director, is that in a few years, there's going to be a great need, and when I say few years, it could be like maybe 3 years max. There's going to be a great need for your department to have money for equipment, because if we're reusing, for example, old laptops and, replacing the hard drive, the hard drive, and it only give us 1 or 2 years more, we're gonna be in the same situation, but that's.
Yes, well, the reason why I'm doing it like that, because, doing that upgrade would cost me $150 versus a brand-new machine, which will cost me $1,200. So if we add the amount of equipment we have, it's quite a big amount of money.
Correct.
We do
But,
understand we have to invest in our computers. That's why we just had $200,000. I know we just recently had some money that we had last year for Carlos as well. There'll be, in this budget is another $1.3 million for Pago capital. We'll definitely be allocating another couple $100,000 to Carlos when the council approves that. But we recognize whatever IT needs, and again, we spent at least $1 million on IT in the last 5 or 6 years, because they replaced all of the, pretty much all of the stuff at the library before Carlos was here. But now all that stuff needs to be replaced again, as Carlos indicated. It's got like a 5-year life or a 3 to 4 year life. We try and get 5 years out of it. We're just trying to, the new police station has the old police station has a bunch of stuff. With the new police station, that'll all be updated. So we're just trying to patch them together until then. So, there's a lot of planning goes into it, but whatever Carlos needs to keep the city safe and secure is where we want to be. So, if we need to take some money out of our stabilization reserve, we would definitely do it. If Carlos thinks it's critical, we'll get it done.
Yes.
Which is going to be my other point. Technology is the backbone of every organization, including the city. And my colleague here works for a city that was attacked. And that's not, the city of Lowell, it's not good. And I'm concerned. I do realize the cost, and I know how costly technology is, but the fact that, we're not even attempting to move forward and trying to get actual new equipment so something like this does not happen to our city, because if we continue to patch things up or whatever. It already happened, that's right, it already happened. So when it happens again, because it will, because we continue to do the same things, the point is that I don't agree with this department specifically being level funded. I think it needs more. Every department in the city, City Hall, Police Department, Fire Department, every single department depends on this individual and his team. And that's something that's just an advice that I hope that you guys consider for the planning, budget planning moving forward. And that's all I have to say.
Let me say something very quick so we can have a perception of what happened. So the city of Lawrence get hacked. And after that, a lot of the equipment, by default, and recommendation from the different organizations that were here, was they were updated. So most of those equipment, as far as I remember, were updated because of what happened and to be more protective. the system get from point A to point B instantly because of the situation. So is that something that you feel that is enough, or that's something that we're gonna keep on investing to be able to be more protected?
Well, let me just clarify one thing. The actual desktop computers or Wi-Fi we have at City Hall and whatever equipment I have, the one that housed the data, our firewall, our core switches, they are up to date. They are up to
Important to
date.
clarify that.
So, and I did a mistake where I thought my firewall, which is the most critical part of our infrastructure, I reached out to Mark and I told him I need almost $100,000 because this needs replaced. Mark didn't hesitate to say, we're gonna get it out of this account. So in terms of security, that's our most priority. You know, computers, the reason why it's like I'm patching the computers is because they are, you know, tools that you use for your billings and all that, but in terms of our backbone infrastructure, that's up to date. And there, I don't do Band-Aid. If it comes to a point where I do Band-Aid, I will quit, because that will make me look bad at the end. So.
All right. It's also important to recognize that your department just get an approval from the ARPA fund of, I don't remember the total amount, 700,000?
It was quite a bit
Yeah.
allocated.
So we want to make sure that, you know, everything that got done within your department, it's have your blessing, because you are the IT director. And you ultimately responsible for anything that, you know, goes good or wrong. So make sure that, you know, you bless every penny on that.
Yep.
Another thing that I would like to ask, I see that the personnel from your department get a little bit of increasement, because they are basically the people that goes around to the city, and every time we have some issues, those are the 2-3 people that, you know, do everything. And also I would like to ask you, when it comes to technology, are we taking mandatory trainings when it comes to a specific phishing or any protection, and become savvy with the new trending situation that are happening many cities and towns, because we could get hacked again? Are we taking trainings that are mandatory to every employee?
So every year, the states set aside some funding for every municipality to do the cybersecurity training. Yes, it is mandatory. Every year, every city, we have to go through it because it's a requirement by the state. I'm still waiting. I know there was some changes in terms of the governance up in Boston, but now everything is kicking back up again, where they will send an email to the mayor's office saying you've been awarded, you know, the funds to do the cybersecurity training for city employees.
Now that you mentioned that, a lot of those communications get to the city, to the mayor's email.
Yes.
Not to the director. And that could become an issue sometime on some municipalities when it comes to communication, because that probably don't allow the department to apply for grants when it need to happen. Is that something that we straight that out? I mean, are we good? Are we applying for every grant that can become available to be able to take those trainings?
I haven't received any notification regarding any grants in terms of technology. I have not, but I have expressed to the mayor's office that anything regarding technology, to please make me aware of it and involve me, so, you know, I can kind of help or be an advice. to whatever they are requesting.
And now that we're talking about the mayor's office, and we were talking about, they were talking about advertising that they increased the budget to $65,000 to do specific projects, including videos. I actually thought that we actually purchased some equipment to be able to do that in-house, some videos to communicate to the community. Is that something that you guys are planning on doing in the future? Because we actually, as far as I know, we
Well-
purchased some equipment to be able to do that.
We,
Or now we're outsourcing those.
IT, I mean, IT gets involved, IT wears many hats. And since we don't have the proper staff to do video editing, but we do have some equipment. I did set up Nestor with a machine that is capable of editing video.
Oh, excuse me, hold on a second. You have the best guy that's to do editing in the city of Lawrence working for you, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
So don't sell that to me.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, we don't have the time to also edit videos.
Now, that's the right
Now, if, let's say, if we would have, if the department is properly staffed and everything's structured the way it's supposed to be, if it needs to be, yeah. I mean, we do have the knowledge. You'll be surprised the knowledge that we have in-house. But it's just, it's only 4 of us.
Understood. Point well taken. Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I mean, you mentioned cyber training, but how safe are we as we speak? I work in Lowell, and after we took a cyber training, everybody took it, mandated by the state, boom, we got hacked. And we've been down for almost 2 months. So how safe are we? And, I mean, if we do, let's say we do, what is the plan to act? Because, I mean, Lowell was surprised, and we're doing everything by hand right now, and they were inspecting it. Like, I mean, nobody expected when you're gonna get it. But now that happened to us a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, do we have a backup plan in case it happened, and how safe are we right now?
Councilor de Rosario, I came from a private sector. I've been working in cybersecurity now for quite some time. And the thing is, of course, with municipality is always funding and not having the proper equipment. I do have a good backup plan. I do have 5 points of backups. So if one fails, I rely on the other one. If the other one fails, I rely on the other one. So, and also I have a backup just in case if everything fails. Yeah. So, no, I mean, no, what I'm saying is if everything fails, I do have a plan to get us up within running back in 4 hours. That's the plan. That's what I used to do in the private sector. So, and yes, I am constantly always monitoring our firewall. I am constantly checking logs of sometimes people use their computer, they visit malicious sites, not that they intend to, but I see all that traffic. And when I see something like that, I always kind of button up the firewall, make some changes, make sure that, everything is updated, all the firewalls are right in place. And also, as a second set of eyes, I have also another company called Retrofit that kind of sees, that kind of go around and also see maybe something that I haven't seen. So, but yes, we do have a plan, and we constantly check in for intrusions.
Councilors, any questions on that? Just have my one final thought. I made sure that you apply for every grant because, those grants are important to the city, and that will help a lot. All right? We have a grant writer. I don't know how often we use it, all the departments, but please, thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
Let's see, that's information technology. On page 40 is the assessor's office. Again, other than purchase of services line items are pretty much level funded. And the positions, all the positions in this department are union positions, so there's very little change in the salaries until the union contracts. Some of the clerical unit, for example, was recently increased, but not in time to change it for this budget, so that's in a separate line item. Let's see, so that's about it for page 41. On page 42 is the treasurer side of the treasurer collector's office.
Assessor's office?
Sure, the assessor's office, sure, yeah.
Councilors, any question in regard to assessor's office?
I just want to add something. I won't be able to help Maria. I promised her that I will help her out, but I won't be able to help her out because it's a union position, Maria, so I won't be able to help you. I'm sorry.
Well, it's in discussions
But
now,
you
we
can
have a
get a
tentative agreement.
We can work on the stipend. I'm going to talk to the CAFO, so I mean, that's all you do.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. Besides the other position, I'm assuming the chief assessor's position is not a union position.
It is in the union.
It is?
Yes, all the
Okay.
positions are in the union.
Thank you.
We have an agreement that the position comes out of the union when the current chief assessor retires or leaves employment. We negotiated that about 3 or 4 years ago. We targeted 4 positions to relinquish them from the union. I remember it was the treasurer collector, it was the water sewer commissioner, the city clerk, and the chief assessor. Those are 4 positions that were in the union that we didn't feel they should be. So we've been negotiating with we negotiated with the union several years ago that when the incumbents left, the replacement would not be in the union. And what we did was there was certain positions that were not in the union, and we swapped when the treasurer left. I can't remember which position went into the union, but say it was the engineer went in the union or something like that. So we negotiated that several years ago.
So we're basically, I mean, I understand this was like 4 or 5 years ago, so we're basically saying to our employees, you're not gonna get a better pay, or, you know, we have to fight, or not fight, but negotiate with the union for a better pay unless you leave. Like, what type of message are we sending as a city employer?
Well,
with
it's subject to bargaining, so I mean, you know, as much as we'd like to get the position out, or you know, it's the union and the city has to negotiate that. It's not something that we can force on the union. We have to negotiate it. So we've got them to agree. It's gonna take a little bit. We are in negotiations right now with that union. We have a tentative settlement, so that should take care of the chief assessor's position.
So what if, I mean, not just this position, but you mentioned there were 5 positions that 4 positions that we agreed to this. So what if the current incumbents, all 4 of them, don't want to leave their position? So they're going to be.
Well, 3 of them, the only one left is the chief assessor. The collector treasurer left, and so we
Okay,
got that
so let me
position.
rephrase my question.
So the only
So-
position that's in the union right now is now the chief assessor.
So what if the current chief assessor does not want to leave the city?
He stays as an employee in the city. He's a member of the union until we can, negotiate it out. We've negotiated it out, but the union, if they let him out early, or if he would like to get out early, we'd have to negotiate that with the union. But we can't negotiate with the employee. We have to deal with the union itself. We can't direct deal with employees when they're unionized. That's a violation.
I mean, I wasn't here 4 years ago, but I think it's crazy that the city even
Well, I think
agreed to this.
there's quite a few things that we don't like in the collective bargaining area. Many positions, I think, should not be in the union, for certain reasons, because of management and so forth. I think it's better, but unfortunately, that's not the case. We could certainly get them out of the union if we can negotiate it out, but the union's, likes their union dues, so what can I say?
Right. Thank you, CAFO.
Quick question on that regard. How many members is on that union that you're talking about right now?
The Supervisors Administrators Union has, I'm going to say roughly 25.
25? Well, that's like that because we want to. Because if the city wants, they create a new position and leave that alone. And that happened on this budget. That was 3.5 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. We changed people from one position to another position because they were doing different duties. And if we wanted to solve this problem, we have defunded bunch of positions that are unions and bring those similar positions with another name. It's funny how the system works.
That sounds good, but that is illegal what you're talking about. We
But that's
can't-
how
we
it
can't-
is
can't
get
do
done
that.
on this budget. It's
That-
done on this budget.
Yeah, well, but I mean, there's certain things we can do, but in other words, but we can't eliminate positions and then create non-union positions, and that's a,
As far as the union agree upon, you said,
you know, that's,
and it's work here. I mean, he actually, you just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago on the controller's office, that I think it was, that it was a position that get eliminated, and then it was
Well, we
another
just-
position that was created.
but we stayed within the union. We, you know, one moved from one union to another, but we, you know, that we're allowed to do. We just can't, that'd be.
Something that I
that's
have learned so
Union
far.
busting. We can't be involved in union busting. We have
Something
to
that I have learned
negotiate
so
it.
far in my 10 years as an elected official is that city do funny things
Yeah.
when they want to.
Well, you know, but we try and do things by the book, and the chief assessor and the assessors, those are ordinanced in the, actually, I think they might even be in the charter, but they're definitely ordinanced. The change was in the Chapter 58 of the Acts of 2010, just changed it from being appointed by the city council and the mayor to it's appointed by the CAFO now, subject to the mayor's approval, so the council doesn't confirm the assessors anymore. But anyway, that's a recent change. But other than that, we do need to have a chief assessor and assessors. They're part of the state statute, so. But anyway, we're doing the best we can.
Mark, it can be done. That's fine. Don't worry about
Okay,
it.
well, we're working on it.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Let's jump into the next department, the assessor's office.
The treasurer side of the treasurer collector's office. So that's on page 42. Again, you'll notice the advertising is returned. The employee training is also in this budget. We put 2,000, that's for the Mass Collector Treasurer Association training to be a certified treasurer/collector. You need to go to attend the Mass Collector Treasurers Association, so that's training for that. The positions in this budget, there are 3.5 positions last year, and there's 3.5 positions this year. The treasurer collector is 1/2 on the treasurer side, 1/2 on the collector side. It's just a bookkeeping thing that we do. We do have an assistant treasurer that's in the budget. That position, we're negotiating with the union to make it assistant treasurer and collector, so that'll have a change if the union approves that. And then we have 2 principal clerks on the treasurer side. If there's any questions on that,
If there's any questions on this? Councilor Levy.
This is a question, but this is in general. So I see a lot of people in here, the clothing and uniform allowance.
it's per union contract.
Per
The
union
clerical
contract?
union gets a clothing and uniform allowance, even though they don't wear uniforms, they get a clothing allowance, is what it is. And I think it's $400 for the 2 clerks, so that's $800. It's per
So-
union contract.
So do you use do they use it on what way, or how we pay?
They negotiated with the
that,
union.
that
Yeah,
amount,
many of
or-
our unions get a clothing allowance. Clerks, for example, like DPW, for example, they get a clothing allowance, but they don't really wear uniforms. But they're supposed to buy steel-toed boots and, you know, jeans or khakis or something. But on the clerical union, they negotiated $400 to help with their clothing. It's not, it's totally taxable to them. It's not IRS deductible, so it's, but they negotiate it,
So if they buy a jean, and they can bring you the receipt, and that's.
there's no
supposed
receipts. It's not it would be called an accountable plan. It's a non-accountable plan. I mean, they just get I think it's August 1st of every year, they get their $400 clothing allowance for anyone in the clerical union. Labor's has something similar. Many of the unions have something similar. Inspectors Union, I think, gets a clothing allowance. Many unions have negotiated that into their contracts.
But this is only for the unions, or all of the other staff that are?
Right, non-bargaining, buy my own suits, and I don't get a clothing allowance. It's not customary, because we don't wear uniforms. But anyway, in the collective bargaining process, they've negotiated it. They've had it for, well before I was here. I'm sure they had it from maybe the 30s or 40s. I don't know when it started, but anyway, it's something that's quite customary.
So people receive practically like the uniform or clothing allowance, also there are so many others that beside that receiving stipends and many different checks at many different times?
Unions negotiate different things for their, DPW has a tool allowance and they have the clothing allowance. I think the tradesmen have a tool allowance and perhaps a clothing allowance or a travel allowance of some sort. Many unions had a travel allowance, which has been rolled into their base pay. But, the unions negotiate whatever they can, and that's a remnant of long ago bargaining was a clothing allowance, which we still honor today.
Thank you.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this? All right, we'll move forward.
Okay, the collector side is on page 44, very similar. The only change to this is the treasurer collector had 4.5 positions last year. We have 4.5 positions this year. Again, that's the other half of the treasurer collector's salary, who's not in the union, so there's a slight increase for the treasurer collector. There's a principal clerk, a head cashier, and 2 cashiers in this budget, so those are the same 4.5 positions that they had in the previous year. And there's a clothing allowance in this department as well.
Councilor Levy?
Yes, so the treasurer tax collector, they have like a 0.5% in here.
Half of
I'm sorry.
the salaries in the collector side, half is on the treasurer side.
So, and how much is the total for
The
this
total
person?
is 125,000 for the year. That's up from roughly
So just putting
105,000
together
from
the
last
half
year.
and half.
Yes.
Oh, those positions are union?
The treasurer collector is a non-union position, and the city's getting a real bargain for this price, for this salary. She's really great.
Any other question, councilors? All right, we might move forward.
Okay, we'll turn to the Office of Personnel on page 46. And again, there's a few changes in this department, some decreases. There was a tuition line item that was in last year's budget, and we took that out this year, but I think there's some money in the ARPA funding in case the city does want to do any tuition reimbursement programs. I think there was, no, I guess there wasn't any advertising in this budget. I think they used the other purchase services line item of 30,000 for any physicals and so forth for new employees. There are 4 positions in the budget last year, and there's 4 positions in the budget this year. This department, all of the positions in this department are not in the union. So each of those positions received an increase based on the Collins Center report.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you. And I don't know if you would have an answer, Kaffel, but I mean, the personnel department will be a department that I think is essential that they have their own advertising budget line. We went through a position, I forget which it was, the personnel committee, and we were late on advertising it because we were going back and forth between personnel department, the city council, and the mayor's office. So,
I think that's when the mayor's office had all the advertising, but the
right.
the personnel office does have, I think, other purchase services line item is what they would use for their advertising.
So,
so they would use other purchase services, but I mean, if they have a specific line item for advertising, I would have liked to see exactly what they would project to use for FY '24. Because right now, I mean, it could be anything. but specifically, we are always advertising positions, and I would like to see what they project to use for FY '24, if that department is one of the departments that they're allowed to have their advertising budget back.
Well, they don't use a lot of paid advertising, but they do some, but so I don't think it's been a significant increase, a significant number, but our personnel director's unfortunately out sick. Yeah, so, you know, but I can see what they spent last year on advertising, what's required, but I don't think it's a big lift for the, it's probably just a few $1,000s what they normally spend. We could spend more, you know, but I think we try and advertise in a bunch of different ways. The latest one that we like to use, the Mass Municipal Association, so we can just pay for those, are like $100 each.
Hold on. Back to my, I would like suggestion for the administration. I want to see the numbers under advertising, specifically because and I'm gonna repeat it, we went through a situation, there was a miscommunication or whatever it was, we were going back and forth between 3 departments essentially. And we missed a deadline or something, I 100% forget what happened, but the point is that things did not happen in a timely manner because we were too busy going back and forth with emails. So yeah, I would like to see that.
So something that you just mentioned, I wanted to touch base on that. You just mentioned that advertisement we use sometimes is the MMA, Massachusetts Municipal Association.
Yeah, we just.
We're not even a
some
member
positions
of the
we advertise.
organization.
We're not members, but we can pay the non-member price.
And the thing is, you know why we're not a member? Because I was pushing for us to pay the dues.
It's
and
roughly
for some reason-
$12,000, that's all. It's quite pricey to belong, and, you know, I know the mayor, it's been brought to the mayor's attention, he didn't feel it was necessary at this time. The council president didn't feel it either. Those would be either department would normally pay it, but, you know, so
We need to
somebody
pay the
wants to join, they just gotta, you know, put an appropriation in.
We
can
need
get
to
it
pay
done.
the consequences of 2 people that doesn't get involved with that organization. I get involved with that organization, and now we're paying the price of not being a member. That's wrong. And let me tell you something. The things that the Massachusetts Municipal Association does for different municipalities in terms of keeping them updated, keeping it on top of things, providing data that we sometimes don't have, we just observe, and based on that, we're not making right decisions on time because we have no data to back up those decisions, and a lot of times. And look, we were having that we kept that membership alive when we were struggling. Back then, to some time ago, when we were struggling in terms of finance, we kept that membership alive. I was part of the board down there, and they do a great things for the memberships. And when it comes to, hey, listen, this is not just a company. This is government. Government rely on data to make the right decisions for the constituents, and we're not there. But sometimes we advertise with them because they do a great job advertising. But let me tell you something what happened with this department. When we were hiring the city attorney, that is under the city council, you know what was the answer we get from the mayor's office to advertise that position? And Councilor Payano asked for, I believe it was $5,000 allocation to put that position up there and receive more candidates. We just get a straight no. Nope, we have no money for that. Why? Because we have somebody in mind already. Because they have somebody in mind already, and that's wrong. This department is the one that most need those funds to be able to get qualified candidates to come to work for the city of Lawrence. So not seeing that is like, and mentioning MMA is like a combination of 2 things that get me upset, because we're not doing the basics of what we need to do to be able to, get more qualified people to work for the city, but yes, salaries are increasing like crazy. And a lot of people that come to work for the city of Lawrence, sometimes are not, you know, others say is that they are not quite, you know, there, because of a lot of them don't know how to operate a computer or something like that. But that's another topic. I would like to see the advertising coming back to this department, because this is the most important department to be able to get qualified people to work for the city of Lawrence. And be proactive and have the funds, and not play around games about, you know, let's go to this department, let's go to that department, and stuff like that. Councilors, any other questions in regard to this? Councilor Levy.
Thank you, Council Chairman. If I compare the budget of the last year with this year, I can see on the purchase and survey, okay? So this year, so the labor relations, we are removing the allocated money, the $2,000 for the last,
I think
that
they
we
just
put it last
moved it
year.
to, I think Gina just moved it to the other purchase service line items and made it from 28 to 30,000. So that's the 2,000 decrease in one line item and increase in the other.
We remove tuition, that's also on 45,000.
45,000, which I believe is, was funded by the ARPA money, by the
We don't
free
have,
cash ARPA.
like it's, my fellow city council say, we don't have a advertising in here. So we continue with the other purchase. We have employee physical, but we don't have employee training. So practically, everything has been removed from the department.
Well, the tuition that was funded last year for the first time of 45,000, nothing was spent, wasn't any tuition reimbursement programs initiated, but I believe they took it out, and I believe it was partially funded with ARPA funding, I think, if the city wants to do some type of tuition reimbursement program. But we didn't do it last year. So you know, so we just cut that line item for this year, but I think there's some funding under ARPA for training or tuition reimbursements or training programs.
What is employee physical that we had in the budget last year?
New employees, we send them for a physical. Every new employee has a physical before they can begin employment, and we pay for that.
So right now, we don't send it to do a physical?
No, we have, we've only, we have 5,000 budgeted, but we've only spent $1,500 so far this year. But we budgeted 5,000, we have for the last several years. Looks like in FY21, we did spend $4,300 on physicals, but so far this year, we've only spent $1,500, or at least as of the beginning of April, when we ran this budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions in regard to this? Let's move forward to revenue review.
So the next is, let's just check these off. So the revenue reviews are in the beginning of the budget, so I'm gonna get you the, yeah, I'm gonna give you the page number, just 1 second, I can just flip it. I want you to be, page 13, if we could start on page 13, that would be helpful. Page 13 are at the top of page 13, this is the one-page or two-page budget, if you will. It's the entire budget in a snapshot, and you can see revenues and then expenditures below. So that's the general fund. So I just wanted to start on this page so you can just see that the budget overall is $408,907,814 in expenditures, and the revenues are obviously the same, so we show a balanced budget. So at the very top of page 13, you'll see taxes and excise, 92 million, charges for services, 2.5 million, and so on. Our largest revenue item is our state revenue, 299.3 million. And you can see the other revenues, miscellaneous revenues, and other financing sources are 6 million, for a totaling 408 million. So if you want to see that, that's the revenues in an overall 9 or 10 line items. You can That's a nice snapshot of the city's revenue picture. And then when you flip to page 15, if you could just keep your finger on the first page, you can see this the first item, taxes and excise, $92,343,000. That's going to equal the same amount on page 15 under taxes and excise. You'll see at the top of the page, again, that's just a summarization of 92 million. And then down below on the bottom of the page, page 15, are all the details. So you have personal property tax of 7.9 million, real estate tax of 75 million, motor vehicle excise of 6.5. These are the estimated revenues that total the 92 million. And that's kind of how this entire budget kind of works. The next section is charges for services, which on page 13 is 2.5 million. And if you want to see the details, you can see on page 16 the total of 2.5 million, but you'll see all these, the individual accounts that comprise the 2.5 million. The largest item of which is downtown parking. That's the 1.2 million guaranteed payment that we're going to receive for installing the meters. We get a guaranteed payment of 1.2 million per year. That's the largest item. And you can see the registry fees, surplus auction, 10% of admin fee for police details and so on. So that comprises the 2.5 million. The next breakdown is licenses and permits of 1.9 million is on page 17, and you can see they're all delineated. There's about 25 or so accounts that comprise the licenses and permits. And again, this is alcoholic beverage licenses, building fees, electrical fees, and so forth from the ISD department and some of the various departments. We do have federal revenue of $1 million, which is primarily comprised of a payment we received from the Lawrence Housing Authority and the Medicaid reimbursement for students from the school department for students that are on Medicaid. So that comes directly back to the city. State revenue, as I mentioned, is our largest revenue source, almost 300 million, and that's delineated on the bottom of page 17. The largest item there is the school aid, Chapter 78 of 266 million. The other next largest item is the unrestricted general government aid, which is 23.2 million. That pretty much goes to the general fund, so that was an increase of roughly $1 million, whereas Chapter 70 was increased by 25 million for the school department. And then just a couple of more breakdowns. The other intergovernmental revenues, 1.2 million. Primarily, those are parking fines and moving violations that the police department issues and we receive from the court. Miscellaneous revenue of 4 million is the biggest item here is our interest income. Our interest income, although we have to pay more for mortgages and so forth, the good news is that we are earning roughly about 5% in our bank account. So our interest income was of a few $100,000 a few years ago is now estimated at 4 million for next year. We've already taken in over 4.5 million for this current year. Other financing sources, there's the large item here is we're using 5.5 million in free cash. Pardon me, 5.5 million in free cash to kind of balance this budget, and that's because of primarily because of the debt service on the Leahy, Oliver, and the police station. The increase in debt service is roughly 5 million. I think the extra 500,000 was just to make sure we balanced our budget this year. So that's a quick review of the revenues. If you have any questions, I'll delineate a little more.
Can I ask a question? Thank you, through you, Chair. Council, can you repeat, how much are we using from the reserve to balance the budget?
5.5 million. That's on page 18 under transfer from free cash. It's under other financing sources. It's the third item from the bottom. We used 4.5 million last year.
How much? I'm sorry.
4.5 million, and again, on page 18, you can see the budget approved from 83 was 4,469,234, which is a transfer from general fund free cash, and this year it's 5.5 million even, so an increase of $1 million.
Councilor De Rosario.
Thank you, through you. Council, do you have the information on how many licenses do we have that make revenue for the city? Like licenses, like alcohol license and stuff like that, how many of them?
I don't know how many there are, I just, the numbers are on page 17, but there's 200,000 is our estimate for alcoholic beverage licenses, so we actually, last year we collected 199,000 in alcoholic beverages. You can see the common victualler licenses right below. So in FY '22, we collected 17,500 and so on. I think the inspectors, or the Inspectional Services Office would have how many licenses are issued, but I just don't know that off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Yes, push the button. Council, I have a question for you. Yes, on the motor vehicle, that's a question that I keep on asking all the time. We keep on increasing the amount of vehicles in the city of Lawrence. Everybody's saying the same thing in the street. We have, so at some point I get an amount of vehicle that was around the 74,000 vehicles in the city of Lawrence.
That's amazing.
And it's crazy, but I don't see the funds here.
They're here.
Because we're very conservative on
They're
the
at
estimated.
page 15, we have 6.5 million in motor vehicle excise.
How much you collected, actual?
So far, at the time we ran the budget, we collected 3.2 million. Last year, we collected 6.6 million. The year before was 6.2 million. So we expect it'll probably be hopefully a little bit more than 6.6 million, because the number of excise bills going out still increases every year. I have the assessor here can vouch for that, or even Maria can vouch for a motor vehicle excise commitment increases every year.
So last year we collect 6.1.
Last year, we collected 6.6 million in motor vehicle excise, $6,621,441 on
And why we only estimated for this year 6.5?
6.5. Well, we're trying to be a little conservative, but well, it's only 100,000 less than the prior year. So, but it's a little bit more than what we estimated. Or at last year's budget, we assumed 6.1 million, so we're hoping we collect that this year. We only collected 3.2 million through April 10th, but we looked at, we do still think we're going to hit the 6 million mark. 5.9 right now. We have another month to go, so we're going to hit the 6 million mark.
Most of the bills are coming this week because the deadline was like a week ago.
Yeah, there's a lot
Last
of
Friday.
deadlines.
So you haven't received my payment yet
Yeah, no.
because I sent it on Friday.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get over. So we've been very conservative on some of that, on some of the aspect here. We will collect a lot of money.
The biggest thing I just wanted to bring to the council's attention is the property taxes, a real estate tax line item and the personal property tax. This budget proposes no increase in taxes based on the 2.5% property tax levy is roughly $2.3 million. We did not go up that $2.3 million. We only increased taxes by the $1.3 million in new growth, which we estimate. That's the new work in the city. So just as information, so last year we had an excess tax levy capacity of $10.8 million. So by not adding another, we're adding another $2.3 million to the excess tax levy capacity. So our new number is $13,177,347, which is the amount of taxes we could levy, but we haven't. And that started back in 2015. In FY15, we had excess tax levy capacity of 1.5 million. That was roughly the 2.5% increase that we did not, Mayor Rivera did not go up that 2.5%. In FY16, it was another roughly a 2.5%. We did not go up. And the same thing in FY17, we went up like 2% instead of 2.5%. So each year we've been adding to our levy so that it was $1 million and $1.4 million and $1.9 million and so on. So cumulatively, from FY15 to present, we will not have taxed roughly $57.2 million. $57.2 million of tax bills did not go out. So if the city were to need that money someday, for example, the new school that we just built, we did that without a tax increase, but if we had trouble with, or if we did not have the free cash, we could increase taxes beyond the 2.5% up to this $13.2 million. So I just wanted to just point that out, that the tax bills that have not gone out from 2015 to present is now $57.2 million.
It's important to recognize that the bill, the property taxes did not go out because of the levy increasement, but they went out because of the market went up. So a lot of people don't understand the difference.
Yep.
So when you say the bill didn't go up, and somebody here is saying that, they will say, yes, my bill went up.
Yeah, somebody's bill goes up, but the tax levy, the total tax levy of all tax bills, again, with Proposition 2.5, we could have increased it $2.344 million, and instead we put zero there, and we left the bills the same. The only thing we increased it was by the new growth of, which is 1.3 million, so. Right, so we added 2.3 million to the excess tax levy capacity, so we went from 10.8 million, which was not taxed last year, and this year we're not gonna tax 13.2 million roughly.
So let me ask you a good question now that you're talking about the levy capacity. If we would increase in this budget up to 2.5%, how much money that will represent?
That's
of dollars.
exactly, I'll give you the exact amount, $2,344,000 and $1,017. So 2344017. 2344017.
So if we increase taxes to the max, which is basically 2.5%, we will still need $2.7 million to balance the budget.
Of the 5.5 million, yes. In other words, if we didn't want to use any of the free cash, and that's not what the mayor's intention, but in other words, but if we didn't have any free cash, we could have increased the budget $5.5 million because we have 2.5, which is the property tax levy for this year, and there's a 10.8 million that was untaxed from last year, so we can go up 10.8 million.
So essentially,
So now it's up to 13.2 million. So, and this happened from 2000 to 2010. The city had an excess tax levy capacity of about $4.7 to $5 million, and that was used up in that 10-year period.
Yep.
So they went up more than 2.5 in some of those years from 2000 to 2010.
so essentially in the last 2 years, we have used from free cash about $9 million.
Yes.
Yeah, $9 million about.
Again, because of the Oliver and the Leahy and the Oliver and the police station, we did not do a debt override. We, thankfully, we had the Columbia Gas incident, which allowed our ARPA funds to be converted into free cash. So we could build 2 schools without doing a tax increase to the public. And we can use this because we have enough free cash to manage that debt service. We're going to have to use free cash for roughly 10 or 12 years, lesser amount than 5 million, but it'll decrease each year. But we'll be able to get those schools built without increasing the tax levy as long as we maintain our free cash
I
levels.
know you have sent us that information before, but can you resend it? How much money we need to use from free cash to be able to maintain the debt service? I mean, can you just send it by email so we can have it on paper?
It's roughly $5 million this year, it's $4.5 million next year, it's going to be $3.8 million the year after, $2.9 million. So it decreases roughly about $1 million for the next couple of years, but cumulatively, it's about 10, 13, 50, about $20 million worth of free cash will be necessary.
Sorry, how much?
Roughly about 20 million cumulatively
20
over the next 6 or 7 years.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you, through you, Chair. And this is if we don't increase taxes or if we do increase taxes? Starting not
Yeah.
this year, not the.
By not, we don't plan on increasing taxes for those two schools because we have, it's a planned use of free cash, is what I put together in my CAFO memo to the council when the two projects were voted on without a debt override. I said, well, we can still afford this as long as we have a planned use of free cash over the next 10 or so years. The first 6 or 7 years where it's going to be substantial, then it's only like $1 million, $500,000 here or there. But as our existing debt service starts to, different bonds that we sold 20 years ago are being paid off. So the number decreases each year, and the existing debt, and that's where we'll fill it up with the new debt service from Oliver and the Leahy and the new police station.
Councilor Levy?
Quick question. How much money do we have on the free cash as of today?
After this, it's about $14.1 million, something like that. We have roughly 20 million, but we're counting on 5.5 million, so it leaves us $14.2 million, something like that.
So practically right now we had about $20 million, and we're
About
gonna
20 million,
take
we're
it
gonna
like
use 5.5
the 5.5 that you are mentioning right now to balance the budget, not
Yep.
without increasing the taxes, that
That's
people can
right.
understand that.
That's right.
Okay, so we're gonna still have
About $14 million.
$14 million.
And then I'm going to send down to the council Thursday noon a request to transfer from free cash to stabilization reserve for debt service. I think that number's about 9 million. I want to transfer 9 million to set aside for this debt service for the next several years, and then put a couple million in a general stabilization fund, and then we have a few reserves that we transfer free cash for every year. We put 500,000 in our OPEB liability, we put a couple $100,000 in uncompensated absence fund, the injured on duty fund, another couple $100,000, and 100,000 for workers' comp fund, something like that. But that memo will be coming down, so that'll reduce our free cash, from 14 million down to, a couple hundred, $500,000, something like that. But we'll set it aside in a stabilization account, because at June 30, our free cash expires. But if we transfer it to a stabilization reserve, and there was a need for something, for IT or any department, we'd be able to have a couple of $1 million in our stabilization reserve to draw from until free cash is certified again next year.
So how much money do we have to have on the free cash to,
Well, we're gonna,
yes, to be recognized again, like, and gets like,
we're gonna
like
get,
if we get an A+,
yeah.
last year.
When we close the books this year, again, to remind counselors, we had roughly 57 million in ARPA funds. We used about 30 million last year, and we got about 28 million remaining that we used this year. We charged our state and county assessments to the ARPA account instead of the general fund budget. So when we close the books, we will have roughly $28 million in expenses that we budgeted for that we're not going to have to expend. So that'll put 28 million bucks into the free cash. So we expect we'll get free cash certified next year of 25 to 30 million, somewhere in there.
So what about that,
But it won't be certified till like November.
November of this year?
Yeah, November. So no, it's between July and November. If we didn't have a stabilization account, we wouldn't be able to, if there's an emergency, the city needed something, we wouldn't be able to transfer from free cash, because we wouldn't have any technically. So that's why we transfer funds to the stabilization reserve, and then if something happens between July and November, when free cash gets recertified, we'd be able to take care of those emergencies.
What about the general fund?
It would be, again, a general stabilization reserve fund is what I'm asking, with no specific purpose. The other, I'm going to ask the council to transfer $9 million into a stabilization fund reserved for debt service for the Oliver, the Leahy, and the police station. That'll be reserved for that.
And by doing that, are we gonna still be okay?
And exactly, we're instead of just leaving it in free cash where it can be used for anything, we're gonna set $9 million aside for the debt service that we know we're gonna need for those two schools, and we're gonna set aside a couple $1 million in a stabilization fund, a general stabilization reserve, in case we need it for any purpose. We still have to come down to the council. Instead of making a transfer from free cash, I'll make a transfer from the stabilization reserve to whatever purpose we.
But if we transfer that $9 million, okay, that you mentioned right now, so practically the free cash is gonna be like almost maybe $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, so next year we would take money out of the stabilization reserve to fund the debt service on these two schools instead of taking it from free cash. Because we'll have $9 million in a stabilization reserve.
So we're gonna take it from where?
From the stabilization reserve
From the
for debt
stabilization?
service.
Okay,
So
so we're
we'll-
gonna take it from there and stay from the free cash?
Right.
Yeah.
And then when free cash gets certified this year, we'll have roughly, like I said, 25 to 30 million. We should have free cash certified, most of it because of the ARPA funds, and then we would probably add to that a stabilization reserve for debt service to set aside all the money that we think is necessary to fund those two schools and the police station. So we'll have that money set aside so we wouldn't have to count on free cash anymore. It'll be in a stabilization reserve fund, and each year for the next several years, we'll make a transfer from stabilization, basically to fund the principal and interest line item that's in the budget, which I'll get to in just a minute.
So last year, we mentioned that still for the gas explosion, we've been owed a couple of $1 million. We were able to get those money back?
We did not do a debt override or debt exclusion. We because of this ARPA money becoming available, I think with the Oliver School, we planned on a planned use of free cash for the Oliver, but when it came time for the Leahy School, there wasn't going to be enough free cash to subsidize both of those schools. But at the time the Leahy passed, ARPA money had just become available, and because in the city's circumstances, in accordance with the U.S. Treasury's regulations regarding the ARPA funds, it was supposed to be spent on X, Y, and Z to deal with the pandemic. But there was an exclusion in the U.S. Treasury that if this community had, or municipality had what's called a revenue loss, meaning what was your revenue before COVID, what was your revenue after COVID, and if you could show a loss, then you didn't have to spend it on those COVID-related activities. You could spend it on any general government purpose. So because we had the Columbia Gas explosion in FY18, FY19 was a period of record. So when you looked at FY19, compared it to 18, we had a revenue loss of 80 million is what it was because of all the money from the Columbia Gas. So our whole entire 57.3 million allocation in ARPA funds was deemed a revenue loss, which we could use any way we wanted. So last year I used half of it to subsidize. I transferred one of the expenses for our county assessments or state assessments for charter schools and transferred that to the ARPA account. So that allowed us to have a surplus in last year's general fund of roughly 30 million. That's why we had $46 million of free cash certified last November. This year, I'm going to do the same thing. The remainder of that 57 is going to be, we already charged it to the expense account. So those expenses that normally come out of the general fund are now charged to ARPA. So that means there's a $30 million surplus in the general fund, which I expect to get certified by the state in
That's what I
November.
say. If you-
And that'll
we
be the end of
already-
ARPA.
Okay, so that we already got it.
So we converted our ARPA money to free cash.
Yes, I know, I understand that,
just
but
a-
it's, the rest of the money that we were supposed to get it, did we get it?
The ARPA money, you mean?
From the ARPA money?
Yeah, we got the whole 57.
No, I don't think so that was ARPA money. That was from the gas explosion.
The Columbia Gas, we had a settlement from Columbia Gas back in FY '18.
Okay,
And we had, 49 million for, I can't remember the total, but 49 million to reconstruct the roads, or 39 million, and then they reimbursed us 7 million for this, 12 million for that, so it all, we settled up with Columbia Gas before they left the state, we got the cash up front.
okay, so practically everything is being solved.
So everything's all received, received in cash back in FY '18.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilor?
So if I could just quickly get to debt service, I'm going to bring you to the details of the debt service are in the last tab in your book, the last page in the book, 150, 180, page 180 and 181, which is the water. But this is just this is the details of the debt service that are due and at 6/30/24. So this is the general fund on page 180, which is the first page here. And you can see the different bonds that are outstanding and the principal and interest is due, and the total for this year is 14.657 million. And the details are below, so you can kind of see them. Included in this is, we do have some deficit notes outstanding. I just want to point out that's the last item that's listed from the bottom. It's a deficit note renewal. We have 11.8 million that is our balance. We originally borrowed 27.4 million. We're down to 11.8 million. We're going to pay principal of 1.5 million this year and interest of 237,000. So that's the FY '24 debt service in a nutshell. The page 181, the next page is this is the debt related to the water sewer fund. It's a little small print, we apologize for that, but at least we got it on one page. And they have roughly 7.3 million in debt service. That's the reason this debt service has increased over the last few years. That's why we've had some water and sewer rate increases to pay for this debt. But they have roughly about 25 bonds or so that are outstanding. And again, the principal and interest is delineated in the principal payment column. There's an interest payment column. There is a little bit of a state payment. A couple of bonds are subsidized by the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust. And the principal, the city payment and the principal outstanding is shown in the same, in a columnar format. So the total debt service due in FY '24 for the water sewer is $7.3 million.
Quick question on that.
Sure.
There is a $1.8 million that we pay in every year for the loan that we took back then when Mayor Lantigua was in office. Can you point it
Deficit
out?
notes, the deficit notes. It was 20, we borrowed, just to refresh for the public at home, if anybody's listening, prior to Mayor Lantigua getting into office, the city had run into quite a bit of problems. When Mayor Lantigua came into office, the Treasury was stuck trying to make ends meet because they had a lot of bills due, but they didn't have any money coming in. So the state had to come in, and an emergency legislation was passed. Mayor Lantigua came into office in January of 2010. By March of 2010, legislation had passed giving Lawrence a 27.4, or up to $30 million of a loan to pay off its debts and balance its budget. The state overseer was appointed, as you recall. That was part of the legislation. The state overseer, the first thing he came in was figure out how much was the deficit, and it turned out it was 27.4 million is what we had to borrow under special legislation, and we've been paying that back over a 20-year period.
And that's $1.8 million.
And that's the
right?
$1.8 million
And can you
we're
point
gonna
that
pay
out on the
this year.
budget?
Excuse me, what's that?
Can you point that out on the budget?
Oh,
Where
that's
is it?
in the budget, it should be on, hang on one second, it's on, get you the page number. Page number 150 is the debt service line item, or just a summary page. In the, page 151 is the breakdown, just a summary on that one-page sheet I showed you, there's school and non-school. So it's just broken out here on, this $14,657,000 is on page 151 in the budget. And then on that schedule that I showed you on page 180, it's the last item, deficit note renewal. It shows the $27,362,450 was the original loan amount. If you could follow on that, that's the last bond delineated on this page 180. And $11,860,000 was the outstanding balance at 6/30/23, and or will be the outstanding balance of this June. And then in FY24, we're going to make a principal payment of $1.540 million, and we're going to make an interest payment of $237,000. So we're going to end FY24, we'll be down to, after we make the payment, we'll be down to $10.3 million. And that payment is due every September 1st.
Questions in regard to this? Councilor Rosario.
Thank you, through you. CAFO, I guess that we requested to create a account to make sure that we have the money in there to pay for the schools and the police department. Has that account been created, or is that the account you're talking about, the $9 million?
The $9 million, we're going to make I'm going to ask the council to make a transfer from free cash to stabilization reserve for debt service. And that's the account we're going to set aside, $9 million this year, and we'll set aside some more next year.
Thank you.
All right, we'll proceed with the next item.
Okay, risk management is next. That's on page, Yep, got it. So this is the property insurance and auto insurance that the city purchases. Property insurance, we have $128,000 budgeted for next year. Our premiums go up every year. Our auto insurance is increasing $150,000 up to $603,000. We have quite a few new vehicles that were purchased. I think there was a fire truck purchased the year before last, so that kind of kicked in. But there's a lot of it's just insurance on all the city vehicles, city vehicle and trucks that we have.
Questions, councilors? All right, you may continue.
The charter choice in school, those are just I can tell you that's on page, bear with me, that's on page 106, and that's, these are just cherry sheet charges that we receive from the state. So this is the school choice, those students that are in a choice program, and in charter schools, kids that are in charter schools, we get the Chapter 78, but then we have to take 38 million of that and give it, and the state sends it to the charter schools instead. So this is just to gross everything up. We have roughly 300 million in Chapter 78, but 40 million really never comes to us. It goes directly to the, from the state to the charter schools.
Can you repeat that again? How much we receive in total from Chapter 70, you said?
Yep, and again, just to remind councilors, Chapter 78 is on The amount is on page 15, and we received $299,380,126 in state aid. All except for 23 million is non-school related, so roughly 275 million or so is Chapter 70 aid, but 40 million, roughly 38.9 million here, the charter school and the school choice, which totals 39.558 million, that will be subtracted from that 275 million, and we'll get the net of those two. And that'll be paid, the state will send that money. They gross up the Chapter 70 because they're Lawrence students, so that's included in the Chapter 70 formula. They give us the money, and then they take the students that are in these other programs and send it off to the charter school or the school choice program.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this? I hear none, let's continue.
Let's see, other financing uses, I think I covered that a moment ago with the, it's primarily the free cash, but that is on page 158 is the summary, and 159 is the actual usage. I'm sorry, this is a different line item. This is the transfer to capital projects, which is 1.243. I think I mentioned that a moment ago. That's the required amount, PayGo Capital required to put in our budget every year, which is a percentage of the prior year's tax levy. At Chapter 58 of the Acts of 2010 requires us to set aside a percentage of our, 2.5% of our prior year's tax levy, and we'll be back down to the council. If it gets approved, we'll be back down to the council asking the 1.2 million to be spent on, it might be for some improvements to the city council chambers, but whatever, we have to come back down to the council to use that money. The contingency reserve account is $2 million. That's basically the reserve for salary increases that are not in this budget that we're negotiating. Will be, we put it in this salary reserve adjustment account or contingency reserve account, and that's where we'll pay to settle these collective bargaining agreements. And the fiscal stability fund is another chapter.
Excuse me.
Oh, sure.
What is the name of the account, salary?
The $2 million line item here is for the amount we're anticipating to settle all our collective bargaining agreements. That's the amount that's going to be needed because it's not in there. We didn't increase the salaries for all the unions because they weren't settled at the time we did the budget, but many of them are settled now. So we're going to have to come back to the council next year, make a transfer from this account to the various departments as the union contracts settle. So, and I'll be down Thursday with some for this year.
From what account are we going to make it a transfer?
From this contingency account, not from free cash. The other item down here is the fiscal stability fund of $720,000. That's another required by the Acts of 1991, Chapter 41 of the Acts of 1991. We had special legislation here in Lawrence, and it required us to put, is it 2.5% or 5% of our general operating expenses in a what's called a fiscal stability fund. We have roughly over, I think it's $6 million now in that fund. We have to keep adding to it every year. It just, we can use it if we ever needed it. It's reserve, it's free cash basically, but whatever we take out of this fund, we have to put back in the following year. So it's, something happened back in 1991. The city experienced some trouble. I think they had a control board shortly before or shortly after that. And this is a remnant of that legislation, but we're required to set aside some money every year. And the required amount this year is $720,000. Last year, we only had to put in $251,000.
Can you repeat the percentage? What's the percentage?
What did you know? Is it 2.5% or 5%? It's 2.5% of the prior year's, not net tax levy, but the general operating expenses of the city. it's a, I have a disagreement with the Department of Revenue on what that entails. I think it just entails the general fund, but they make us include everything other than the water sewer fund in that number. And so that's why the number is so large this year, it's 720,000, but.
So 2.5% of the previous year,
Previous year's general fund operating expenses. I don't have the calculation with me, but it's a function of the tax recap. The certain items from the tax recap are identified, and the Department of Revenue does a or we do the calculation for the Department of Revenue, and they certify it. And I think it should be a lower number, but they insisting on their methodology, and they are the boss, so we go by what they want. But I am going to try and see if I can convince the Bureau of Accounts Director to see it my way and reduce that number, so it's less of an impact on the city budget. But anyway, the money does go in a reserve fund. It sits there. We have over roughly $6 million in there now, and it looks good on our balance sheet. It's nice to have reserves set aside, but with this special legislation, if we use it, we have to put it back in the following year, which kind of puts a damper on things. But one of the things we might want to consider is it's special legislation, so we'd have to have see if one of our state reps would sponsor legislation to ask the state to see if they would remove it. I think another community had this. I came from Springfield. They had something similar. It was from 1989. You guys were 2 years later in 1991. But it was the same exact thing, a stabilization reserve fund. And I believe we tried to get rid of it a few years ago, and the state said not yet. So, but Lawrence might have a chance to get rid of it.
all right, councilors, any question in regard to this? You might continue.
Intergovernmental assessments, those are, hang on one second, those are on page, they're on page 152, and I'll just, there's a page 153 is the detail of them. These are just things that come on our cherry sheet, except for the multi-year repayment, the first item of $75,000. Some of the councilors may recall that's a payment that we're required be made to the State Retirement Board. The State Retirement Board overpaid us in several years past, and they overpaid us in the tune of roughly $2 million. Shame on them for overpaying us, but when they caught the error, they said, hey, they want the money back. So several years ago, I talked the State Retirement Board into at least, all right, we'll pay it back, but no interest. And I wanted to pay it back to have a minimal impact on the city's budget, pay it over 20 years. So the Retirement Board agreed to that. So for 5 years, we paid $50,000. The next 5 years, we're going to pay $75,000. The next 5 years, I believe, is $100,000. And then the last 5 years will be $125,000 per year until it's all paid up. So we don't pay any interest on it. It's a shame we have to pay it back, but that's what that $75,000 line item is. Everything else is just off the cherry sheet assessment, special education assessment, a little bit of air pollution for the county. We contribute. The Regional Transit Authorities, the MVRTA, the Merrimack Valley, or MEVA, I guess they call now. Our assessment is $1.2 million. And Merrimack Regional Planning Commission is $34,000. And the registered motor vehicle surcharges are every time we mark an excise bill or a parking ticket at the registry, they charge us $20. And last year totaled $227,140. So that's the intergovernmental assessments. And lastly, employee benefits is on page 154. And the detail of it is on page 155. And in this, going from the top to bottom, one of the largest items is the first item is the pension assessment. It's $11.1 million. That number is closer to $20 million, but the school department pays their share. $11.1 million is our share. And then there's two other members, the Greater Lawrence Technical School and the Lawrence Housing Authority and the Merrimack Valley Transit Authority, the other employing units. So they pay a piece of that bill. We have a line item here for, can note that the non-contributory pension is zero. Those are employees who retired prior to 1939. There were still a few left this year. They've all passed away. You can imagine their ages. So we no longer have a non-contributory pension line item. But it's not a mistake. We did budget 19,000 last year. This year, zero. They're all gone. Unemployment compensation, we're estimating 150,000 for next year, which we're pretty close to. We spent a little bit over that right now, as a matter of fact, but we think 150,000 is a reasonable number for next year. We have the same number for Medicare. That's the employees. We have to pay the 1.45% employee match on employee wages. The group insurance commission was $15.3 million last year. We have a 15.7 million increase this year. We've just ran the numbers before I came down here. We have expended 12.3 million to date. We have 3 months worth of, or 3 payrolls remaining for the city, and 3 months of the employer match required for retired teachers and retired city pensioners. So it's roughly 850,000 a month for the retirees. There's 3 months remaining, so that's 2.5 million, and 3 payrolls remaining is roughly 200,000 a payroll. So we have roughly 3.1 million remaining to pay, and we've expended 12.3 million to date. So we will, the projected expense is 12,465,000, and we budgeted 15,305,000. So I'm projecting a deficit of 160,000. So I'm hoping my estimates will be just a little bit off, but we are going to spend need a little bit more than the 15.3 million that was budgeted in FY23. In FY24, we had a few rate increases, and the calculation for next year is 15.7 million. So an increase of, we only increased it 400,000 from the prior year for health insurance for city employees and retirees. The last 2 items are group life, small item, 9,000. Dental, we level funded dental at 608,000. We spent 606,000 last year, so we think that's we're still on target. And then in this, we also want to set aside, or we set aside in these line items, the last 3 line items are reserved for ILD, which is injured in the line of duty for police and firefighters. We want to put 400,000 in that reserve fund. We also put 300,000 in an uncompensated absence reserve fund. That's for people who retire, their sick leave buyout, vacation buyout, whatever may be needed. We put that aside in a separate account. And then a workers' comp reserve fund of 350,000 is we transfer into that fund, and that handles all the workers' comp claims that come through for non-police and fire employees. So that's the employee benefits in a nutshell.
Before you continue.
Yes.
Do you mind sending us an spreadsheet or a table specifying the total amount of basically all of the reserve funds that we have in the city of Lawrence? Because you have mentioned so far like 4 or 5. Yeah. But can you send it to us by email?
Yeah, I'll send you the reserve funds, yeah. And the balance and the reserve funds. And I think that's it for my department. The police department is next. Thank you, councilors.
tiene el aire acondicionado aquí. Ella lo apagó, yo la vi. Tú lo prendiste y yo cuando se lo... Frío. Are you crazy? It's hot in here. Either the boss should know it's in here is hot. Look at-
See how red I am?
Yeah. They don't love you, they put you the last one.
69, yeah.
Infante's guilty for that. Come on, he's a nice man. Casanova here, something, yeah. Always nice company. I'm gonna be around him, you know? Oh, yeah. I will get something out of that budget.
Hi,
Hi, Chief, for being here. Thank you.
good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the police budget for FY '24. 69, I think.
Page 69.
Okay. So, under personal services, the recommendation is $904,515. And that's a change of $165,719. Police operations, or police administration. And police operations is $14,004,447, and that shows a decrease of $772,402, but it's not an actual decrease. I believe that's reimbursement from grants that account for most of that money. So it's not a cut in our budget, it's reimbursement from grants. Purchase of services is $222,050. There's a zero change in that. Professional service is $159,000 and zero change in that. Supplies are $208,340, also a zero change. And under other charges and expenses is $20,556. Zero change. And the last is the capital outlay, which will be $8,000 with zero change. And that's for a total of $14,622,393. Crossing guards is zero funded. Under animal control, personnel services are $112,105. That's a increase of $10,345. Purchase of services is $13,317. That's a zero change. Supplies, $3,500. That's also a zero change, for a total of $128,922. And under auxiliary police, it's all zero funded. They no longer, they've been disbanded due to post certifications. So a total for the police department recommended is $15,655,830. Again, it shows a cut of $596,338, but that is mostly due to grant reimbursements. Would you like me to continue on page 70 now? Okay. Again, salary and wages for permanent employees, $890,115. This is the administration division. That's a change of $161,219. Overtime is $5,000, and that's a change of $5,000. Vacation is zero funded. Longevity is $8,200, a decrease of $500. Retroactive salaries are zero funded. Clothing and uniform allowance is $1,200. That's a zero change. Total for personal services is $904,515.
Through you, Vice Chair.
Yes,
Okay.
I was trying to compare like last year with this year.
It is,
but
yeah, okay. I have a question towards, I'm on page 74,
74.
where we're listing the positions and salaries. I'm seeing, so for this year, in the budget, we're proposing 2 additional lieutenant positions. for
Two
almo-
additional captain positions.
I'm sorry, yeah, captain. Okay. And then I'm also seeing a negative of $1 under patrol officers, and we currently have 135. What is the plan to increase that?
So we're currently not at 135. We're budgeted for 135. We have 8 in the academy. We're still going to be 2 to 3 bodies short due to recent transfers. So we're going to send people to the next available academy.
If I could just answer the salary increases in that 2 million line item in the back of the book, because they haven't settled their contract yet, so there's no, they don't know what the salary is going to be, so there's no increase this year, but it's gonna be in that $2 million number that we have set aside.
I'm sorry, I
Okay, thank
misunderstood
you.
you. I thought you were talking number of officers.
Well, that too. It was both. It was two questions in one. Then I have a second. You're the interim chief, but your official title is deputy chief, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, okay. So I'm seeing a change in deputy chief, where we're adding one, or is this your position? I'm on page 71.
Yeah, we're,
That's adding a position to the budget.
Okay.
Sorry, that's adding a position. There hasn't, I guess there's a deputy chief that's been ordinance, it just hasn't been filled in the last several years, so now there should be a police chief and a deputy chief.
So-
Yes, last year we added that position.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question on the regard? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through you. I'm assuming, careful, that when I see here, zero vacation money is due to the same thing on the salary of the 2 millions or not?
Yeah, I think in the admin division, there was a vacation pay, vacation buyback. Some of the officers, superior officers assigned to the administration division, somebody in FY '21 must have, or a few people may have put in for vacation buyback. In FY '22, we only spent $1,052, and so far in FY '23, there's $10,421, but there's nothing budgeted this year, because nobody knows when they're gonna put in for their vacation buyback, so it comes out of their salary line item. If it's additional pay, it does put a bind in their budget.
I have a
Another
question.
question? Another question. Also, Chief, here, I see then overtime, $5,000. With the shortage of officers that you guys have, don't you think that you guys might run out of money on overtime?
So
And you
yes,
guys keep coming back here asking for money all the time for overtime?
So we also supplement that with a staffing grant, and we, sometimes we have to come back and move money from, like, say, the court budget if we don't spend all that, so.
That 5,000 is just in the admin division. They have $1 million in the operations division on page 74. They have a couple of different line items. They have overtime budgeted of $420,000, then they also have the police court time, which is overtime, $450,000 budgeted.
Okay, see that. Thank you.
I have a question. Last year, when we agreed to have a new deputy chief, it was with the condition that need to be like a reauthorized and make some change on the ordinance. I don't remember to see or request on that. Did we pass the new? No? No, we haven't,
I don't believe so.
because this is the things that, you know, that we had on the last year budget that said the deputy chief need to be reauthorized and create a new ordinance that need to be changed.
That-
Yes. Because of the salary, exactly.
Through you, Vice Chair.
Yes.
That's why when you mentioned that we passed it last year, I was a little confused. I'm like, I don't remember, because we didn't go back to that.
We approve it.
Right, but we didn't
approve
go
it.
back to it.
Where? Exactly.
Right.
It was cut last year. $195,000.
$195,000. But never somebody came back to us just to do what we asked, you know, on this.
I think the issue last year was 195,000 was not ordinance.
No,
So-
exactly.
Right, but the position was ordinance, but the dollar amount was incorrect, or there was some concern over the dollar amount. So this year, when the Collins Center report came down, this 125,000 is in the range, see if I can tell you what the range is, because I brought it with me. But the 125,000 was approved by the council through the Collins Center. And let's see, if the deputy police chief is a recommended grade of B, and the range is 100,100 to 145,600. So it's in the budget at 125,000, kind of in the middle.
But I was requested anyway, just to came back to us and to modify and to change whatever that has to be changed on the ordinance.
Well, you did change it when you approved the non-union classification plan. You approved the dollar amount for the deputy police chief is listed. So now the request that's in the budget is within the proper range.
the proper
And it's
range.
already, the position's ordinance. I think the definition of the position wasn't an issue. The issue was the dollar amount. I think the ordinance might have, some of the ordinances, before we put this plan in front of the council, some of the ordinances had, for example, a budget analyst can only make $35,000. Well, I can't hire somebody for $35,000. That's why we had to come down here, get the Collins Center, and update all the classifications. So as the preamble to this non-union classification plan was that if it's listed, some of the ordinances have a dollar amount right in the, as an example, the budget analyst has like 35,000 as the maximum salary. Instead of saying, grade B, without a dollar amount, it put this specific amount. So we put a preamble, whereas this new non-union classification plan replaces any other ordinances, dollar amounts for any ordinances. I can't remember exactly what it said, but the city attorney prepared a preamble to cover us so that we wouldn't have that issue. The ordinance says pay only $35,000, but we need to pay more. So now these are the salaries that the city council approved. So we won't have that problem in the future, as long as we keep coming back and updating the non-union classification plan on a regular basis.
Any questions, Councilor?
Thank you, Chair. My final comment on the overall police budget, back to page 74. The fact that we have 80 80 potential patrol officers in the academy, and we're still going to be 2 or 3 officers short, and yet here we are still adding administrative positions. Like, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. This is the same issue I had last year, and I told, and at the time it was Chief Vask, I was not for it. I just, especially now after I did the ride-along and saw what's going on within our community. We need more officers, and they need to, aside from needing more officers, they need to get properly paid too. In my head, it doesn't make sense that we're adding. We have to take care of our front line first. We need to figure out that problem. And then once that problem is figured out, then we go and look and go up the ladder and see what holes we need to fill. But I guess, I said the same thing last year, but, whatever. That's.
Councilors, any other questions? I hear none. Councilors, at this point, I would like to, I entertain a motion to recess so we can
So moved.
rejoin tomorrow. All right, there is a motion to recess. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. I see you tomorrow.